Welcome back to the Ice Cream Parlor. I'm Heidi,
Yes.
that's Stefan, and that is Larry Block.
Yes, today we're joined by Larry Block, who is the writer of Funhouse.
That's right.
The Fun.
The
The
Funhouse. Is
Funhouse.
it the Funhouse? I was wondering about that. I wasn't sure.
A regular Funhouse, you get something else.
There's something
You
else.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay.
It's a TV
So,
show.
The Funhouse, directed
Great.
by Tobe Hooper from 1981.
Yes.
So thank you so much for coming.
Yes.
I'm so excited to talk to you about this movie. So right now, why don't you tell us a little bit about what made you write it? The Funhouse is, if you guys haven't watched it, go watch it and then come back.
Yeah.
But the Funhouse, it's actually really exciting movie. It starts off really creepy, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I kind of want to know, I have some questions, but we'll get into it a little bit later in regards to how movies get made after the process. Because, you know, you wrote the movie, but then I'm sure it gets taken out of your hands and then goes through probably casting directors. And
Does it get
everybody,
Frankenstein?
Like,
It's a very interesting process.
Yeah.
To answer your question, I had moved out to Hollywood from back east, from New York, actually. I was out here around, I probably came out in 78. And was kicking around for a year. And in those days, it's a lot different than it is now. If you knew anybody and you knew how to tell a good story, you get a meeting. And then these producers or people who were in the business would take you like to a studio executive or to someone who had money and wanted to fun movies, and you'd get to tell your story. And if they were impressed, they basically said, okay, so we'll give you X amount of dollars to do a treatment or do a story or actually write a screenplay. So I would go ahead. I was doing, I was making the rounds and doing this. I had a couple of deals with a couple of companies where they developed some stuff. There's a company called, it was Arthur Lavin, it was Levy Lavin, I'll get it later, Productions. And I was about to pitch a story, and they were doing a meeting where they were doing a story pitch with Tobe Hooper. And they finished with him, and he came out, and they wanted to make some notes, and so they introduced me to Tobe Hooper.
Well, that's
like,
oh, by the way, here's Tobe Hooper.
No, they introduced me to him, and I said, how you all doing? And with his Texas accent. And then he asked me the inevitable question that all directors ask, which is, so what you all working on? So I actually said to him, I was working on this project called The Funhouse. Let me back up for a second. When I was first out here, beating down the doors, John Carpenter's Halloween came out.
yes.
And I saw it and I liked it, but I was kind of like young and arrogant, and I thought I could do much better.
So this was around 78, you said?
Whenever Halloween came out. Yeah. So again, and it's really funny looking back at it because it was such a giant phenomenon. They made so many of them. But I was convinced in my own mind that they were like a little bit flying by the seat of their pants, and that the idea of it going supernatural at the end was almost an afterthought. Because he was a kid. It was a kid who murdered his sister, and he's locked up in an insane asylum. And he comes out, and so I figured, it's just like making this up. So I had thought to myself, I can do better than this. And the movie cost almost no money, and let me go do something. And I was going to do like a haunted house story, and I was playing around with all kinds of ideas because at that time you could actually go to dinner parties at haunted houses that they had, or they had like murders that they,
like House on Haunted Hill.
Yes.
Gotcha.
But they actually had that, and I figured, that's a great idea to do that, and I'm struggling with it, and then all of a sudden I remembered something from my teenage years. I had visited a traveling county fair carnival back east when I was like 16 or 17 years old, and it blew my mind. It was sleazy. It was scary. There were all kinds of taboos built into it.
Was it
There were-
smelly too?
Oh,
Those
absolutely.
things look so
Oh,
smelly.
No, and no, and cotton candy and throw up and I'm just it is so richly textured. It is such a multi-dimensional experience, and it was amazing. It was great. And all of a sudden I thought to myself, gee whiz, haunted house. Why not do a haunted house on wheels? Oh, I got it. The ultimate scary haunted house movie would actually be a fun house where
Right,
people
yeah.
go, to get, to get their cheap thrills and to get scared and everything. And it's all controlled and it's all fun. And what if, there was something going on there? And that was how I hatched that.
It kind of reminded me of, so I'm like an avid reader, so I'm constantly talking about books. And there's this book that I just loved in my childhood. It was The Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler. And it's the kids, they go and they sneak into the Met and then they just sleep in there, like they hide in there and they spend the night kind of thing.
Right.
And so when in the Funhouse, that's what the teenagers do. And I'm like, what's going on?
Right.
Everybody, I'm not the only one that wanted to do this. Like, though that was a great premise. I thought it was great. But it definitely is like as I guess if you allow yourself to go back, I try to release like anything that I'm holding on to when I watch a movie to really immerse myself into it. So it's like an experience instead of just watching the movie. I know I talk with my hands. I'm sorry. I'm brown. But it's in their decision to just click like, oh, let's spend the night here. That'll be fun. Right. I turned off my mom mode. Like, what are you doing? Right. I wouldn't be able to do that. Like, it's just so scary. So many unknowns. Not even understanding that it's just like super carnied out, right? But just like the fear of the unknown is like always there. But the idea of putting it in like in the middle of a town, surrounded by everybody, like your brother's outside, their neighbors are outside, and then just being so vulnerable because you're in a space that you cannot get out, and somebody's actually like stalking you, like trying to get at you. It's great. It's like oh my God, I can't even imagine it.
Now,
I wouldn't be able to do it.
Did you move out here specifically to get into the movie business and write and everything?
Did, yeah.
And when you say back east, where, New York?
New York.
Okay.
Queens,
yeah.
New York.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm originally born in Massachusetts, and I have family up in the East Coast still and whatnot. So
I lived in New Hampshire for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
I went to the University of New Hampshire for graduate school.
Cool.
So,
Actually, my great-grandfather had a farm out in New Hampshire.
Wow.
I don't remember the exact city, but I was really young, and we used to go out there for Thanksgiving every year when I was a kid. And then my family has a business that, just off topic, but we make motorcycle racing gear and leather jackets. And originally we got started because there's a racetrack up in Loudon, New Hampshire. I don't know if you're familiar with that area, but that racetrack is where we got a lot of our first customers from. And so we used to drive up to New Hampshire for that quite often. But yeah, so I was just wondering if you happened to come here specifically to get into the movie business or what.
Specifically.
So when you came for the movie business specifically, when you came, what did you do? Because you watch all these movies from the 80s and such, and people are like, they literally go and they try to go get a meeting, and they keep bugging and they keep bugging, and the next thing you know, oh well, we made friends at a bar, and then now we're friends. But I don't think that's how it actually happens.
Well, with
Is
me,
it that easy?
No. Well, no. With me, what had happened was I was a pre-med student in college, and then I switched my major to English, and then I went to graduate school, and I really loved it. I wanted to be a novelist, and I'd written one novel and got a little bit of positive feedback on it. And
what was the name?
It never got published.
Oh, gotcha.
But then I decided to write a spec screenplay. My brother was out here. He's a physician. He was doing a residency at Cedars-Sinai, and he had a patient whose brother was part of Laven Productions. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, if your brother is a writer, so if he ever comes out, I'll be very happy to help him out.
Oh, nice.
So I had written a screenplay. I got it to the William Morris Agency in New York, which is totally different than out here. They gave it a very favorable review, and they said, if you ever go out on the West Coast, you should really like look us up. And so that was it. I was so stupid and so naive and so arrogant.
So you ran over.
Yeah, you're right. No, so we came out here, my wife and a German Shepherd dog that we had, and a whole bunch of suitcases.
She loves German Shepherds.
We were anyway. So I started. I met with this gentleman, Arthur Gardner, who they had done a lot of westerns. They did The Big Valley. They did Rifleman. They did one of John Wayne's last movies, McHugh, I think it was called. But they did a low budget horror movie years ago called It Challenges the World. It was done in black and white. You should look it up. It was actually.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so I was doing some stuff with them, and they were the ones who, when I was waiting to go in to see them, they said, this is like Tobe Hooper. So now we're back to the Tobe Hooper thing.
By the way, here's Tobe Hooper.
Yeah, how it goes.
Only the director of my favorite horror movie. Okay.
Well, I had seen, I had seen and heard of, but never really studied Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But I knew he was like big. And he said, so what you working on? And I said this thing called The Funhouse. He went back in a circle. Now, yes, it's good. and he said, well, are you almost done with it? I said, I have around two weeks work. Okay, fine. Well, I'd love to see it, when you're done with it. And here's my phone number. And they didn't have cell numbers in those days. It was like phone numbers. So he gives me his phone number, he scribbles it on a piece of paper and he says, give me a call. And I had been out here long enough to know that probably nothing's going to happen. But I finished writing the script. I did some really, once I realized it was actually going to go to Tobe Hooper, I had studied Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I understood its sensibilities really well by that time because I analyzed everything. I have a master's degree in literature. I don't, all the classics, back in, when I was still in school. And I peppered the script with things that I thought would really attract him. The whole concept of the dysfunctional family.
Absolutely, that's in my notes.
and anyway, so I finished the script. I called him up, and he remembered me, and he said, "Okay, so get it over here." I think we messaged it over to him, and like a week later, he calls me up and says, "I really like this thing, and I want to figure out how to put a hold on it, how to option it. And I have a friend who might want to do this with me, so let me find out." And he did. And he got Mark Lester to put up $1,000 to option the screenplay for a year. Wow. And that's why Mark Lester is an executive producer on the movie. This is like crazy. Yeah. And then Mark Lester had somebody, it was a guy he was working with in Parental, a guy by the name of Derek Power, who was a producer who I think had done a Peter Weir film called The Last Wave. Okay. And not a whole lot more, but so they made the deal with me and with like Tobe. So for $1,000, they optioned the screenplay for The Funhouse. And then Derek Power got a new job. And he started working with Mace Neufeld and Harvey Bernhard. Now, Mace Neufeld, it was B&B Productions. They had actually produced the original Omen, in addition to a whole bunch of other things. Oh. And then later on, they would do all the Harrison Ford films, all of the big ones when he was like doing all the action movies. And they were the ones who got it. First, they were going to make it as a super low budget movie, like super low budget, because Tobe could do that. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre cost almost nothing. And then I guess they were kicking the idea around, and they got it to Tom Mount at Universal Studios, and I guess sort of convinced him that, you guys are missing the bandwagon here. Halloween cost almost nothing, and it made all this money, and we should do our version of Halloween, and appeal to like teenage kids and do a slasher picture. Yeah. And that was that.
That was it.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, that was a good choice. I mean, I can only imagine coming off of the Halloween high and then seeing the Funhouse come out, and you're like, oh, that's next, right?
It was crazy. One very funny thing, my brother, who had originally got me out here and introduced me to, he got married up north. He's a physician who's practicing in Modesto, and so a week before the wedding, we got this incredible news, and of course, we told the entire family that I got a movie. We're doing a movie with Universal Studios. And then, like 5 days later, before the wedding, all of a sudden they call us up and they say, "Oh, the deal's off, and not making your movie." And I'm thinking, what the hell? And it's embarrassing because we told the entire family, and we're going to see the whole family. Oh
my God.
So we just kept a straight face. Oh, the movie's going great. The movie's going great. And then we came back, and it was like, oh, geez, what are we going to do now? And then all of a sudden we get the call saying, no, Mace was able to get Tom Mao to change his mind. We're going ahead and we're going to make the movie, with a budget of like something like 3.5 or 3.
So they called you and they're like, psych.
Yeah.
Right?
It always seems like there's ups and downs in the movie. Like nothing's guaranteed.
I couldn't handle it. Like
it's that part of it is really horrible.
Yeah.
It really is, because
it sounds like
you're at the mercy
right.
of so many people, and if you want to. Then there's this concept of the pitch meeting, which is just you're trying to do it the best you can. You get executives who get it, you get executives who don't get it. You get development guys who are young. They know very little about movies actually, and they're a firewall, and they're making decisions about whether or not you go to the next step. So it's really hard.
It sounds abusive.
It really is.
It does.
It's. I looked through some of my notes. I had notebooks of places. I used to do like 3, 4, 5 pitch meetings a week, and you'd be excited. You go to go to Universal, you go to Paramount, and you meet with somebody.
Interviews over and over again.
Yeah, and you're just trying to get people to get hooked on a story. Now, in those days, if you really engage someone in a story, and you know how to tell it well, there were development deals that were going on. That's all become like, if you want to speak about that later, the way the business is today, it's all changed. It's almost impossible to get a development deal where anyone will put up money anymore, unless you're totally A-list. And that's because people don't know this. The ratio of movies that get bought or developed and then get actually made is like 1 out of 100.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I sold a project a few years after Funhouse to Eddie Murphy Productions. They were going to do it over at Paramount.
Oh, wow.
They were working on, they paid good money for that. It was in development, and they never made it. Then if you go into their
But do you still get to keep the money?
Of course.
Okay, good.
Oh yeah, it's an option, and you get the money, and then you also, under certain circumstances, you get the rights back because a certain amount of time has gone by. But it was, you gotta get up all the time because they keep knocking you down.
Yeah.
You gotta be a glutton for punishment.
Yeah, I've seen. I mean, just not even within the movie business, but TV shows and all that. I mean, I've just noticed that there's so many people that they get like a pilot, and then they get a network or something involved, and then they'll shoot like a bunch of episodes, but then they never air or whatever.
Correct.
It's to me, that's, I don't know, I like things that are a little bit more consistent. It's really hard for me to just have that up and down.
And then you become,
kind of
as a viewer, you feel so invested, and you're like, this is gonna be great. So we go to the Comedy Store a lot.
Right.
And you kind of feel like you build a relationship with the comedians you love there.
Right.
And they are, they'll hang out with you afterwards, and you'll talk about their next project, and they're excited about this and that, and you're invested in it, and you're like, oh, this is going to be so great.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, well, they got pulled, and you're like, oh, I'm devastated for them, and I can only imagine, like, I couldn't ever do sales. Like, I couldn't ever do customer service. There's just so much like disappointment there that I would just break my heart every day.
Yeah.
The major difference is that it's not real estate. It's not a property. Until it's gotten made. Once it's been made, then it's an intellectual property, and it's really worth something. I've gotten the rights to the Funhouse back. I just did this recently.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah. Congratulations. That's a big deal.
I'm saying, but prior to unless you actually have an intellectual property, something that was made and you own it, or you own the rights to a book or something, where it's something that's tangible and concrete, it's really smoke and mirrors, because everybody writes, everybody has ideas about stories. And, the typical story meeting that you'd go to, you tell a story and there'd be an executive who really, some of these development executives don't love movies and they don't know anything about movies. And so they have these like cookie cutter questions and suggestions, which is, they'd say, here's a real, well, does it have to be a girl? They just want to put their,
For the record, it always has to be a girl.
no, they want to put they want to put their spin on it. Does it have to be young? Can it be old? Does it have to be old? Can it be young? And it was very. A couple of times I made a really bad mistake where some guy was like looking at himself in the mirror while I was pitching. And I said, "You want me to stop because you're not
be present, bro.
You're scratching your and that wasn't good. It was a big. You can't do it. You just have to really keep taking it. And
oh my gosh, no thanks.
Yeah.
I'll stick to this and my day job. I couldn't do that.
Well, no, it's different now. It's really different now because
according to the documentary I saw called Entourage, it's brutal.
Yeah, what I'm saying about it's different now. As a matter of fact, I just saw there was an interview with John Carpenter where he basically said something to the effect of he wished he was born now and making movies now, because the equipment and this and the special effects are so cheap and so amazing that anybody who's got a bunch of friends can actually put together something. And now with YouTube and Instagram, there actually are more opportunities in terms of that. In terms of mainstream, very few opportunities, but everybody's looking at YouTube, and there are major movies that that people who got deals from doing little test footage on YouTube.
That's definitely true. Like the entire everything has just shifted. Like we do this now with video.
Yeah. And
essentially he edits a 2-hour movie every week, and he's able to do it based off of a Creative Cloud subscription and a computer, and that's all that's needed.
Right.
Granted, we don't have special effects.
Right.
Yeah.
But then there's we watched the Golden Globe because it was on at the laundromat. But we watched the Golden Globes, and it's like Netflix, right? It's like Netflix and all these movies that are just like The Irishman. Amazing movie that it took a while to watch, but it was an amazing movie, and it's a Netflix movie, and you didn't, it's a streaming service. You don't go to the movie theater. You don't go and buy the merchandise. Right. You just stream it at your convenience.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like the same way when CDs came around, when people used to listen to tapes, and then CDs came around, and that was like the next revolution. And then now CDs are all obsolete, and everything's all digital and MP3 format and all this. And it's just like everything is always fluctuating and changing so much. And right now, that's Netflix and all these other companies kind of like came out of nowhere. I mean, who would have thought that Blockbuster would have gone under, and they tried to jump on board with the whole streaming thing, but it didn't work out. And I guess, that's just the way things go. You just keep up with the times,
That said, I still have records, and a lot of people still have records. Things change. You just have to be able to adapt, but also remember the reason why you do it. You do it for, your love of writing. You do it for your love of making the music that you want and pouring your heart out. I do it because I can't shut up and I like to talk. You do it for various reasons. As long as you stick to your true self, I think the audience can feel it.
Yeah.
The problem with screenwriting is, and I went through it myself. In the beginning, you're doing it just for the love of doing it. But unlike when you're writing prose or you're writing, short stories or even a novel where you can show it to people, people can read it. When it comes to a screenplay, they're really not readable by people who aren't in the business and know what they're actually doing. So that part of it becomes very unsatisfying. And then you begin to slowly but surely, at least I did, come to the realization that if I don't sell something, if I don't make that sale, I sort of really wasted my time. Mm-hmm. And you begin to start having that kind of a mindset. And it's interesting, but then you learn a very valuable lesson from Raymond Chandler, who I discovered very late in my life. Raymond Chandler, the guy who did The Big Sleep, and he was the noir thriller. He invented the noir thriller. If you like what they did with Blade Runner, they turned it into a Chandler-esque type of thing with that narration and whatever. And he came up with this idea where he would cannibalize his own writings. And for a screenwriter, that's great, because all that stuff that you've written, that you have, and like if you've written a lot of screenplays, and most of my stuff has been optioned, not a certain percentage were actually made, but you are able to go back into that stuff and just like lift scenes from it, and that's what he did, by the way.
Well, that is a good kind of like.
So you cannibalize your own stuff. It's your stuff always, and you own it. But you begin to think in terms of the business that, gee, I have to sell this for it to really be
Now, when you specifically write a screenplay, does that mean like you're also putting like camera pans here, fade? Is it like that, or because it's not just the dialogue and everything.
When you first start out, the big mistake that most people make is they over choreograph the script. They really do. And no, unless it's very important that you have a dissolve in there where one scene dissolves into another. Unless it's really important that you have a smash cut or the camera pulls back
to the story.
Unless it's and people they hate it when you overdo this.
Gotcha.
So screenwriting has also gone through a bit of an evolution. And if you look at the newer screenplays, it's funny. The first screenplay I ever read was The Wind and the Lion. It was an action adventure. Sean Connery was in it, and that was written. He was actually at one time he was a young man.
Oh, I know. I found a picture of him like in a Speedo, like flexing his muscles, and it's on my private Instagram.
That's probably from the movie Zardoz. It's probably.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down because
Oh yeah, he was. And then he was James Bond.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yes, of course.
So that was the first script I ever read, Wind and the Lion, and it was written. It was unbelievable. It was written like a novel. Every detail. You can't do that anymore, and you shouldn't do it anymore.
Right. Okay.
The screenplay is supposed to be around 112 pages, and it's supposed to be a really fast read because you got to get by readers first, because if readers aren't hooked, they're not gonna pass it on.
Right.
So, we're big fans of The Sopranos, and there was an episode where are you familiar with the show?
Yeah, I know the show.
Okay,
yeah.
so
I knew David Chase, by the way. He actually gave me a job once.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, David Chase was a great guy. Yeah.
Look at that.
Nice.
He has everything. But we recently watched the episode where Christopher has his screenplay and he's showing it to Jon Favreau and his cousin's girlfriend that he ends up sleeping with, and it just doesn't go according to plan at all. And he's looking at there's a scene where he's opening up a script that he finds on her floor when she's sad that she accidentally slept with Christopher, and he's like, oh wow, and you see the realization of I'm writing my script all wrong, right? So I'm like, I don't even understand what has to go on the script. All I know is I have to give my money to the ticket person, and they will let me in, and we'll watch it.
By the way,
watch the hell out of it.
I'm pretty sure, because I was at Paramount for like around 3 or 4 months doing this Eddie Murphy project. They gave me a nice office, and I'm pretty sure the story is true. I think it's the movie Near Dark, with the horror movie, the vampire western movie, Near Dark. Yeah, I think that might have been the script that nobody wanted. It was finished. And I think when Ed Feldman came and took over the office, they found it in a drawer, and they go, "Oh, this is like really great." And I'm pretty sure it's Near Dark.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's so interesting the way these things happen.
Yeah.
But it's a miracle. Every time somebody gets a movie made, actually, it is a miracle. And forget about it doing well at the box office, because the majority of movies don't do well at the box office.
Just getting it made.
It's like every studio has got to have like around 2 or 3 pictures that pay for all the losses, because people don't realize that
Oh, that makes sense.
you pay X amount of dollars for the screenplay. You shoot the film. It can be any low budget film is like 3 to 5, 7. Okay, whatever it is. Once you're dealing with like a 20 million, 60 million, 120 million, the movie's got to make triple the amount for it to break even.
Sure.
Because of the print and aid, the prints and ads that they put into it. So every studio's got to have like 1 or 2 hits that pay for all the losses and then some. And again, it's you know what, Mario Puzo, and you know Mario Puzo, yes.
No, you'd have to.
The Godfather.
I don't know names.
The Godfather.
Yeah.
Okay.
He wrote The Godfather.
Yeah. Okay. Now, yeah, but I don't remember
that's fine.
names. That's a
Okay.
big part of this.
Mario
podcast.
Puzo, who wrote The Godfather and did the screenplay for The Godfather, and also was a big gambler and loved Las Vegas. He had a quote, and occasionally I teach classes in screenwriting, and I always basically, Hollywood across the board is a lot like this is a quote. It's a lot like Las Vegas, except the losers stick around. That's Mario. That's Mario Puzo.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Like I'm an LA native, and as you grow up in Los Angeles, especially because I used to get bused to the West Side for schools, so I grew up with a lot of West Side, and you meet people in the industry throughout, especially when I used to work as a nanny, and you see people in the industry, and you're like, oh my gosh, how much abuse can you take? That's why I was able to really relate it to that.
Right.
But then there is just so much of just this one family just moved into a hotel and let their house be used for pornography for 2 months straight, just so that they can stay within the industry. And it's just, people just get really hooked, or they're really passionate about it, and they just won't leave. And I always joke around that, oh, you're a director? Yeah, there's another one. But because everybody, essentially is in the industry in one way or the other.
Sure.
When I first came out here, we were staying at the Franklin Motor Lodge right near the freeway and in Hollywood. And we saw, it was a thing called Eyewitness News. I don't know if I don't watch it anymore, but Eyewitness News. And so we're here, and we got a bunch of screenplays with us. We were so stupid, we thought that you couldn't copy screenplays out here. So we actually took them. We didn't even think about it. We carried a bunch of screenplays.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so we're watching Eyewitness News. And they did a thing on Hollywood Boulevard where the news camera, comes over, a bus pulls up and someone gets out and they go, "Excuse me, can I speak with you for a second? This is Eyewitness News. So how's the new screenplay coming?" And person says, "Well, it's great. How did you know? I actually finished one. Do you have an agent yet?" No, but I'm working. Okay, fine. The next person. So how's the new screenplay coming along? And it's like, gee whiz, you know what? I'm on my 3rd one already, and I'm trying. I'm getting there, and it's like 3-4 times in a row, and I'm go, this is like crazy. And then they ask someone, "So how's the new screenplay coming along?" And the person says, "Oh, no, I'm not a screenwriter." "Oh, really? Can I ask, what do you do?" "Yeah, I'm a musician." So that's basically, that's what it is, and that's what you're up against. But one of the reasons for it is that if you have any success whatsoever, and of course the ultimate success is having a movie made, if you see that in the theater with a live audience, there's nothing like it. Mm-hmm. The adrenaline rush is unbelievable. More so in an action or a horror movie than any other kind of movie, even like more so in a comedy. And to see people scream and to see people go like this and work, and everything that you planned out and was actually shot properly and it works. Right. I cannot tell you the adrenaline rush. It is amazing. And once you've had it, you're that's it for life. You're stuck.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah. So I'm a musician, and I sort of came out here for music. Obviously, I didn't end up signing any kind of deals or making it, but like as a musician, when we're performing on stage, that's the reaction we're hoping that the audience is going to give us back, is that they enjoy our music or whatever. But it sounds like from what you're saying, watching a movie with an audience, it's sort of like you're behind the scenes watching their reaction, whereas a musician, we're on stage in front of them,
Right.
and they're giving us the reaction face to face. Whereas
It's
again,
like you're immersed in it versus
No,
you're receiving
right,
it.
because
right.
you're like a puppeteer. You're
Yeah.
like you're just like you're waiting. Like, oh wow, I can't
Yeah.
believe the next scene. See if they're
Because you
gonna
know
jump.
what's going to happen.
See if they're gonna jump or not.
I
And
guess-
when they do, it's so satisfying.
I guess maybe for the actors, it's a little bit more like the musician because they're on the screen. So even though they're not there live and they may be sitting in the seats or behind one of the
Right.
scenes or whatever, I think because they're getting more of the credit for the movie in the sense, maybe they feel it a little bit more. But yeah, for the behind the scenes people, the crew, the writers, and everybody, like they, it's something that I guess like that's what I'm saying. For me, I try to. That's how I gauge it. Is like, okay, I did a song or I did a performance, and is the audience into it or not? And then you're saying the same thing, except it's almost like a voyeuristic point of view because you're seeing their reaction from behind. That's pretty cool.
Spot on. Right?
Yeah.
It is.
Is that recording?
Yeah, that's fine.
It's fine? Okay. So it's like watching your child learn to walk, it seems like. Like you put all this time and effort into it, and then you just finally get like a delayed response.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it seems like anyway.
I remember on Funhouse when it first opened. We went to a screening before at Universal Studios. They just opened up the new Alfred Hitchcock Theater, and that's where they showed it, and it was great. I mean, it was phenomenal. But that was with industry people there.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember going on Hollywood Boulevard, and we went to see it. I think at the Egyptian. And
We love the Egyptian.
Yeah, Egyptian's
We're going to
nice.
be there on Saturday.
what are they showing?
Well, so I'm part of the Secret Movie Club, and they go and they show all
Yeah,
kinds
I
of
did this. I did the
I know
secret.
you did.
And this is the reason why I'm doing this, because it was a crazy thing. I started very late in life doing Instagram, and
Me too, actually.
So did I.
but it's really dangerous because it's so smart the way it's set up that you get this rush of endorphin. You figure out what are the viewers going to like, and you put something together, and then you show it, and then you wait for the for the hits to start happening. But so I started doing Instagram, and for some reason it crossed over to Twitter, even though I really don't quite understand Twitter and don't like it.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
But no, I was on, and then somebody all of a sudden came to me and said, like, we're showing Funhouse, at the Regent Theater, downtown in like 3 or 4 weeks. Why don't you do a Q&A? And at first I thought, no, and then I looked at, okay, well, gee, like, why the hell not?
Yeah, why
And
the
that's
hell not?
and that's it. And they showed it in 16 millimeter, and it was very grungy. They were having like pizza and beer and everything
Oh
else.
yeah, it's the best.
And
It's so
I went crazy. I mean, I put a couple of clips on my Instagram of it. I did like a 30-minute. It was like doing 30 minutes of stand up with a crowd that like loves you.
Yeah.
Because, by the way, horror fans, I'm beginning, like if you go in the Funhouse, hashtag the Funhouse, there's 10,000 postings on the Funhouse.
Yeah, so
And-
welcome to the community again. Like, this is what we are. We are diehard fans that if we love somebody, we're wondering why the hell everybody else is not on board yet. So we just try to bring them on over. And the events at Secret Movie Club and Cinematic Void, I don't know if you've checked that out yet.
I follow them, yeah.
It's those events, he loves those less than the Secret Movie Club.
Well, it's just from an audio standpoint.
Yeah, he's a musician, so the audio's pitchy. But
The host is just they don't have their levels right.
They do something where they actually read screenplays. They do readings.
well, I haven't gone to those. I've gone to the marathons. We've gone to Camp Voids, which is like movie marathons, but like targeted for a specific theme. But those things just fill my heart, and it's full of men, so there's never a line in the women's restroom. It's beautiful. It's magic, and it feels so good because you're with your people.
They absolutely are, and they love genre movies, and they're incredibly forgiving of genre movies. Which there are critics that love horror movies, and they're forgiving.
Yeah.
Siskel and Ebert actually loved the Funhouse. It was one of their guilty pleasures, and to see them speaking about it, and
Oh, I'm sure that was amazing.
No, it is. I have a clip of it actually. Anyway, what I'm saying is, then there are certain critics who just don't get it, and that's horrific. That
They can watch something else.
No, I'm just saying, when a critic doesn't get something, or they're asking questions which are like, they're obviously not in the flow of what you're trying to accomplish in this particular movie, and you see that a lot. But when you're with your peeps, I went to I know the people at Peep Show, and as a matter of fact,
nice.
I'm working. It's almost a little bit of a top secret thing, but I'm working.
We won't tell anyone. We promise.
So I'm working about the remake for the Funhouse with Greg Nicotero and Brian Whitten. They were trying to apparently get the rights to this from Universal like 6 or 7 years ago, when Eli Roth was going to be doing it, and so they couldn't.
Oh my gosh, hold on 1 second. That's like the love of my life.
Eli Roth.
Give me 1 second.
Okay. No. Listen.
Can you tell him I said hi? Okay.
No. Okay. I don't know him personally, but I will tell you.
I don't know him personally yet.
Okay, but I will.
Larry, we can do this.
Yeah. But I'm telling you, the movie Hostel is absolutely brilliant.
Yes.
It is one of the most brilliant horror movies that I've seen in such a long time. And it actually says something, and there are actually poignant moments in it. And I love cautionary tales. It's the ultimate cautionary tale.
It is. I will tell you, I will never backpack through Europe ever.
Now, did you specifically want to get into the horror genre when you were starting out writing screenplays?
Yeah, I grew up loving horror movies. I used to sneak downstairs and watch on television, and my father would come. He would try to scare me. I just did an interview with a Spanish company. Apparently, the Funhouse is big in Spain. It's big in France, whatever. And so I'm back in the business again. I was sort of like semi-retired for a while, but. I loved horror movies, and I remember seeing King Kong, the reruns. They did in black and white. That movie blew me away because it had that element of scare, and it had Fay Wray. And even as a 6-year-old, you fall in love with Fay Wray.
Of course, as a 37-year-old woman, yes, I agree.
So I love that. And then the other movie that spoiled me for life. It's really a fantasy movie. I went to see Ray Harryhausen's Seven Voyages of Sinbad. And it totally freaked me out. The Cyclops.
Yes, exactly.
And the skeleton at the end. It totally freaked me out. But there was a part of me that got so excited. It's a combination of fear and excitement. And it's a different kind of an endorphin rush. And then you find out it's special effects. And I went gaga for special effects. And I learned how to do stop motion. And I was really into stop motion.
Oh, nice.
But that movie, when that Cyclops came out of the cave for the first time, and he's howling, I'm going, what is this? This is like so magical. It's so magical, and that's what this. So and I loved horror movies, and I was an avid fan of horror movies.
Well, with horror directors and writers, it seems like that they do tend to stick in their element. Like Wes Craven or a lot of these people, like they're not known for doing dramas and comedies and all that. But so like other directors, like say Kevin Smith, who's known for doing comedies, he's kind of gone outside the box and done a couple dramas or whatever. But seems like what
is it? Red State. It's really good. Like sometimes they can cross over and just really do this one thing really well and then go back.
Right, yeah. But I just think that the trend that I have seen anyways is that it seems like the horror community and the people that are really into horror, they stick with it and they do it well instead of experimenting with a lot of different other genres,
If you don't get it, you really can't do it. And I've seen major, ill-conceived ideas that studio heads have done where they'll take a movie. One of my favorite movies, and I guess you could call it a horror movie or a thriller, is Open Your Eyes, which is it's a Spanish film.
I don't think I've heard of that.
Yeah, they remade it. Right?
It was remade as Vanilla
Sky. That's right.
Oh, okay. Vanilla Sky. Was that
the low budget movie that it was based on, which is Open Your Eyes, is a masterpiece. It's an absolute masterpiece. and then you see what happens when they put the Hollywood spin on it. And in that particular movie, although it's a great effort, it was not a horror director who directed it. It was I'm trying to remember his name. He did Jerry Maguire. He's a great director, but
What's his name?
I don't remember the director's
Yeah,
did a
name.
whole
I'm not
bunch
good
of
with
things.
directing
Okay,
names.
anyway.
Except for Tobe Hooper.
The point is that a movie like that was based upon like teenage angst, two teenage friends, and one of them steals the other guy's girlfriend, and then all hell breaks loose. And I don't know why anybody would ever think that you could do that same story with adults. Because it's like it's not cool anymore. When you're teenagers, you have angst, and you got
act
hormones.
like a grown up, right?
You can, but you're a grown up, and this is like your best friend. Why are you taking his girl?
Yeah.
It's
Right,
sort of
yeah.
anyway.
That's
but,
very irresponsible of you, Chad.
Overblown. Way overblown.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Also, that's kind of why I'm so hesitant to watch the remake of Suspiria, because I love the original.
Amazing movie.
The remake?
No, the original.
Yeah, the original
blew my mind. Yeah,
it's such a good movie, and I'm so scared to watch the remake, and he's gonna make me do it,
No,
and
I'm
I
not
don't
making
want to. I really don't want to.
If you're a purist and you know anything about Dario Argento, he comes out of Italian film horror.
Yes.
Gran Guignol, and
I almost named my son Dario. You kidding me?
That movie I got to see on a big screen because I was doing something with a movie company, and I was trying to sell them a horror script, and they weren't getting it. And I said, we have to watch Suspiria, on a big screen. So they called up Fox Studios, put it in a screening room for us, and we watched it.
It's great.
And then
You haven't seen it yet, right?
they got it. But on a big, the movie is absolutely magnificent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she's been talking about Suspiria, and I've never seen it. And then it's one of the movies we want to do for the podcast, but we just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah.
I know the movie back and forth. I know the movie back and forth.
He'll tell you all about it.
So if you can't get anyone who is involved,
We'll record the Suspiria episode, and then you listen to it.
No, I'll because the movie is unbelievable.
It's like it's art. It's an experience, and you can immerse yourself in it, and you're just like. You have to remember to breathe. It's so well done. I'm trying to introduce him. Well, for the most part, we have been doing a lot of things. So he's learning about Dario and HGL, and I've got to get him into a little bit more Hitchcock. Like he's aware of them, but I don't think he's ever experienced them just yet.
The original movie Psycho, by the way, it's Hitchcock, and now he used his TV crew to do it.
Yes,
and it's in black and white. And he used all the tricks that he knew how to do and he made such an incredible movie. I actually met Robert Bloch, the guy who wrote the book. And
so that's not you with another name.
No. I bumped into him on Hollywood Boulevard, and
that's where you would.
No. I was surprised. I was really surprised. I don't know what he was doing there. I was actually surprised because anyway, he made very little money on that book. I think that Hitchcock bought all the rights out for something like $35,000.
Yeah, there was something like that.
So I bumped into him. Now I had my own experience in the publishing business because Funhouse had already come out, and I think it was probably 1990 that I met Robert Bloch, and I had already had my golden egg, which was when it turned out that the person who novelized the screenplay for the Funhouse, which was under the name of Owen West, turned out to be Dean Koontz.
Yeah.
And
so how did that make you feel? Because that sounds
it's
like...
the greatest miracle in the world that ever happened in my life. It was really, it was a religious experience for me. No, I'm absolutely serious.
Yeah,
it was an absolute miracle because we were going to make the movie, and then they decided that Universal Studios, who owned Jove Books, was going to do a novelization. They were doing them every once in a while. They were doing them for movies, and they said, "We need you to sign off to let somebody else write it because you own the copyright to your screenplay." And I said, well, why can't I do it? And they go, no. We already have a deal with someone named Owen West. He's going to be the next Stephen King. And we've already we're putting, into the Funhouse, we're going to put something like $500,000 in ad campaign to launch Owen West. He's got a 3-book deal with us. And that's it. And so, but there are 5 points to be distributed between the producer and the producers of the movie, and we're willing to give you. And I negotiated with them. I wound up with 3 points. And unlike the movie business where you never see your percentage points unless it's gross, it never is. It's off the book price. So it was Owen West and. So, okay, fine. So they're doing this and I got an advance. And then I get a phone call and it's Owen West. And he says, hi Larry, listen, I'm doing a novelization of your screenplay. I love the screenplay. It's a lot of fun. It's really good. Is there anything that you left out of the screenplay that you want to tell me about in terms of motivation? I thought it was like so decent.
Yeah.
And I said, no, not really. It's a self-contained screenplay. That's what a screenplay is. And all the hints are kind of like there already. And no, I really haven't. And that was it. He said, well, thank you very much. And I said, well, thank you and good luck. And that's it. So what happened was the movie was delayed in its when they released it. They were supposed to simultaneously publish the book at the same time as the movie. It was supposed to reinforce each other. So the book comes out first, and the book goes to number 2 on the New York Times bestseller list.
Wow.
And the book is basically it's the last like 1/3 or less 50 pages of the book are actually very close on with the movie. The rest of it is backstory that Dean came up under the name of Owen West, that he came up with all these backstories and all these subplots. And
good, because I have questions.
Okay, no. It's very interesting. So what happened is then the movie comes out, and then the book kind of like peaked, and that was that was kind of like it. And then 10 years later, you go through cycles. The thing about screenwriting is you'll get a deal and it'll be fantastic. You'll get paid really good money, for a screenplay, good option money or a good development deal. And then you make a sale and that's great. But then it's like 9 months later before you get another job. So when you crunch the numbers on it, if you're making, $150,000, but it's over 3 years.
Right.
That's not great anymore. And this is what makes people really, really crazy.
Yeah.
So what happened in that instance was 10 years go by, and I'm always following, the Funhouse by Owen West. And then all of a sudden I'm at one of the bookstores, the Crown Books. They've gone out of business. Everybody goes out of business. And I look, and all of a sudden I see there's this book, and it says Dean Koontz, formerly known as Owen West, and it's one of the 3 books that he had in that 3-book deal. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. That means that eventually they're going to get to doing the Funhouse and redoing it under. By the way, I should have just shown you. This was the original Funhouse book. Hit the microphone. Sorry, hit the microphone again. That was the original Funhouse book. You see, I'm like prominently. I'm on the cover of that, and it's Owen West.
Oh yeah! Oh my gosh! Right here.
Yeah.
See it? I like your book.
No. So it's really interesting. This is like being told out of water. So then, this is the book where I get a call from Universal Studios saying, that they're gonna reissue it. But you'll be on the copyright. I'm on the copyright page, but we need to take you off the cover because we will sell more books and you will actually make a lot more money.
Well, okay.
Because of this. So it was very complex. I was at Crown Books and I said, oh my gosh, this is a miracle. And that very afternoon, I get a call from Mace Neufeld, who was the producer of the Funhouse. He was the main guy who put the whole deal together. And he says to me, well, Larry, they're going to remake, they're reissuing the Funhouse. It's under Dean Koontz. And you know what? You had 3 points. We had 2 points. These points don't exist anymore because it's a republication and then they never exist. So if you're really lucky, we might be able to get you like a half a point or max out at 1 point. But there's no way you're going to get the 3 points because it's off the cover price, and the cover price was already double the amount. So I was like, had no idea what to do, and then I remembered who Owen West's agent was. I called up Owen West's agent and said, "Listen, I only spoke to the Dean like 10 years ago, but tell him it's Larry Block from the Funhouse. And I really need to speak with him because I'm like so confused about what's going on here, what I should do."
Yeah.
I get a phone call from him like 3 hours later. "Hey, Larry, how are you? How are you?" And I explained to him what was going on. And he goes, "Oh, I'm not letting them do that to you." He says, first of all, he says, "I love you because I was really hungry with my wife, and a starving writer when I got that deal to novelize your book. And that was like, I got paid more money for that than anything else. And that was like really great. So what they're doing to you, I'm not going to let it happen. So here's what I'm going to do." This is what he says to me. Here's what I'm going to do. There really isn't, they don't have the full 5 points anymore. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you out of my pocket a half a point. Oh. You're going to get a point and a half, and then you're going to go to Mace Neufeld, and you're not going to take no for an answer, and you're going to get a half a point for him. So you're going to wind up with 2.5 points in a Dean Koontz book. I can't believe he says they're going to terrorize you. They're going to threaten you. They're going to say that they're not going to publish the book because they already said this to me. We're not going to publish the book unless you give it up for 1 point. We're not going to do any, and you're going to hold tight and call me anytime you want. I couldn't believe it's like a guardian angel. We became really good friends.
That's a beautiful story.
And so I held out. I got the 200. They said to me, as a matter of fact, this is the last version. They republished it again, and in that afterward, he speaks all about me, and he tells a little bit about the deal, how we were both told by famous people in Hollywood we'd never work again, and we were threatened and all this, and he talks about me being like his half brother. I worked with him.
Great.
I worked with him on a lot of projects. I got him a deal actually at Stars. As I was like a producer. I got one of his projects at Stars. But anyway,
the story just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny too because usually goes the other way around. When they take a book and they turn it into a movie, right?
No, it was, and let me just finish it by saying that the first check that I got from when it's under the Dean Koontz name, and again we were like it was a starving family. I had little kids, and it's feast or famine. First check that I got, I didn't do anything. It was like $119,000. And in the book business, that's unbelievable. Yeah. Over the years, I've earned like $250,000 from the book, and I never did anything with it. It was all Dean, and he did a brilliant job, and he came up with all these backstories and everything else, and that was a work for hire that he did for Universal Studios.
Oh, that's a great.
Maybe we should try writing. That's good money in it.
He's a great guy, by the way.
Yeah, no, that sounds like he is. Sounds like he's amazing.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a lot of interesting facts there in that backstory.
That's awesome.
We're off track.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a quick break and then we'll come back and do the movie.
Yeah, okay. We'll just delve into the movie.
All right,
cool.
We'll be right back. So the movie goes like this. There's a POV of this bedroom. Mm-hmm. And the bedroom, there is classic horror everywhere. Mm-hmm. My dream bedroom growing up has Frankenstein monster masks everywhere. Right. And there's a torture wall. Yes. And there's just creepy crawlies. I'm not good with the mice, but everything else is just feels so happy.
Yes.
It's nice and creepy. It's gross. I loved it. And then there's a girl who is going to take a shower. Mm-hmm. Now, she looks like a very young girl, and I imagine she's not actually. But we do see are what did he call it?
Oh, what did I call it? The obligatory
Boob shot. Yeah,
For
obligatory
horror
boob
movies?
shot.
Yeah.
And we see the POV again, and the guy, the person is grabbing a knife from the torture wall and is getting a mask on, and very much like
Halloween.
like Halloween.
Sure.
Yeah.
Very much the view through the cutout eyes of the mask, the slow and like walk over, and then you open the bathroom door and suddenly it's Psycho and the girl's in the shower and the curtain gets pulled back and she screams and there's a knife coming and the knife goes to stab her right in the stomach and it folds because it is her brother in a mask.
Right.
Right. What a little pervert.
It's so interesting. First of all, originally it was he had planted a snake in the original screenplay. He had planted a snake that she was going to go for the towel and get the snake. And then we had our first meeting, a script meeting. We were talking about it, and they were saying like, "What are you trying to do here?" I said, "Well, it's like Psycho and a little bit like Halloween." And they go, "Well, we love that. So can we do more of that?" And I said, "We'll do it all the way. That's it.
Yeah.
Let me just go do it." I wanted to have, by the way, paintings on the wall that looked like in the Psycho house, which are like birds and all birds. I wanted to go 100% all the way with it. So in those days, I'm just, the most prudish guys in the whole business in terms of critics or Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert. They looked at it, they said, "Oh, then you realize it's a kid, playing a practical joke on his sister, no problem with it."
Oh,
So
I'm not calling you a pervert. I'm calling a little boy a pervert.
No, but I'm just saying, little kid. No, what I'm saying, they didn't see him as being a pervert. They saw him as playing a practical joke on his sister. And I know. I guess times have changed.
No, it's not about times have changed. It's as the older sibling to a little brother. Oh, he would have got his ass beat.
She terrorizes him. She you can see the scene where she's screaming at him and saying, "I'm going to get you. You're not going to know when. You're not going to go where." And it totally freaks him out. By the way. Which is why he doesn't.
Later on, it affects him. Yep,
Yes.
definitely.
Yeah.
Well, so I saw that and I'm like, oh my God, that's something like, aside from like attacking me in the shower, that's something my brother would have done. My brother and I, we're only 2 years apart.
Okay.
But my brother used to lay traps. And one of those traps was putting his Lego set at a just barely open door and letting it balance on top. So if anybody got on, they got a head full of Legos. I'm talking about a Lego set, right? So I'm like, this brings me back to my childhood.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna call my brother right now just to tell him I'm gonna beat him up. Right? So it did feel very genuine in that sense, but also, oh, that kid.
By the way, one of the scenes that was deleted, he keeps saying he wants a shrunken head. Get me a shrunken head from the carnival.
Oh, really?
Because she says, I'm not going to take you on Saturday. She had promised to take him on Saturday.
Right.
And one of the deleted scenes, if you have like a really good eye, is I had it ironically. When she makes the phone call to the family at home, saying we're going to spend the night in the funhouse, she actually says, and they cut it and they had to loop over a different voiceover for it. She actually says, and tell Joey that I forgave him and I'm getting him a shrunken head.
Oh,
and there's actually a scene, you can see it, where what they deleted was she says to Buzz, I got to get my brother a souvenir, gets a shrunken head. He ties it on her waistband. And in the entire dungeon scene, when they're running through the maze,
that's
you can
what's
see
hanging off her skirt?
that is on her skirt. And what was supposed to happen was, and they never shot it. There's a lot of things they never shot, unfortunately, and we can go into that if you want to. When the creature finally gets her in the sublevel, and he like smacks her and throws her against a wall, that shrunken head falls off onto the floor, rolls across the floor. The monster bends down to pick it up, and he's like looking at it, and that's when she whacks him over the head. So ironically, that sibling relationship actually winds up saving her life.
Right.
But-
Okay. Well, so what she actually says in that phone booth is tell him
Joe
that I enjoyed the movie,
That's
because
correct.
the parents don't know that
That's
she's
correct.
at the carnival.
Right.
It was
Yeah.
supposed to be I got him a shrunken head. Okay.
Yeah.
But then she would have gotten in trouble because she was not supposed to be at the carnival.
Yes.
Now was
No, she's getting him a shrunken head, and then she's wow,
That's what I do. That's what I do.
Wow, 40 years of the first person who ever said that. Wow,
now was the
Welcome to the ice cream parlor.
was the Frankenstein monster and all of the Universal monster stuff, was that something that you had in the
I had, because in my room I had a glow-in-the-dark Frankenstein as a kid growing up.
So is this your bedroom?
Yeah, it was, except I didn't have the torture stuff, but I had all the scary. I had
the torture stuff. Look, together we.
Okay, but yeah, that was I think they overdid it. And by the way, I didn't want a mouse in a rotary. I had a maze, because the maze was actually a parallel of the maze that they're going to be going through.
Yeah.
They didn't see. We had an issue here where Tobe Hooper, Andrew Laszlo, who was the DP, and he's an unbelievable DP. He did the cinematography for the Warriors, if you remember and Mort Rabinowitz, who did Castle Keep and They Shoot Horses, Don't They? He was our set designer. Tobe, Mort, and Andrew and myself all understood what we were doing. And one of the producers, not Mason Neufeld, because he had done a horror movie, didn't like horror movies, didn't know horror movies, and didn't particularly like the project. And the other producer, I don't think, got it. I mean, when I was saying, well, we'll do the psycho thing all the way. Let's put some pictures on the walls,
The
and
wallpaper, the whole
and he's saying, oh no, we can hang because my son has got a butterfly collection. We can do. I go, no, they have to be birds. Like psycho is birds, stuffed birds and birds. So they didn't kind of get it.
Yeah.
So it was. I felt bad for Tobe, because I was down there for 10 days of pre-production where I worked with very carefully on a lot of the stuff. I even have the blueprints to the Funhouse. Oh yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway,
We should build it.
anyway, or at least a model of it. Anyway, this goes back to this thing. There are certain people who get it, certain people don't get it, and that's why there's a certain amount of unevenness to the movie, and why a lot of scenes were deleted or never shot.
So we watched an interview with Tobe Hooper recently, and he mentioned that there's a whole reel of footage that was just missing.
It's the opening scene.
Right, yeah.
He
talks about
They had to reshoot it.
The real story is it was reshot at the Universal lot, and it was a closed set. I wasn't allowed to go on. No one was allowed to go on. And actually, they had another director shoot it because he had moved on to something else.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think in that interview
Because
he
the
describes
Teamsters?
That's he's saying how they lost the footage. He blamed it on the associate producer who had was supposed to deliver the film, and it was intercepted or something, and they lost the footage.
Yeah.
But it's the entire opening scene of the movie.
Oh wow.
Oh, wow.
That's interesting.
All right. You learned something. Okay, so after this scene, the girl gets dolled up and ready, and she's putting on a copious amount of makeup because she looks 10 years older with the makeup on. But it also was the 80s, and that's just what women did. The blue, you guys don't know makeup. The blue eyeshadow just really made you look a lot older. Yeah. Anyway, she goes downstairs, and we meet her mother and her father. She obviously is much closer to her father, as she calls him daddy, and she calls her mother. And there seems to be like some issue there.
Yeah.
It seems like the mother's just, babysitting her drink, and she's like lovingly holding it, and I feel she's very connected to her liquor. And
Yeah, she's an alcoholic.
Yes.
Yes, very perceptive of you.
and then the father is just, telling her, well, you're going out on a date. Who's this guy? Why is it so late? Also, don't go to the carnival because of some funny business that happened 2 towns over or whatever.
Right.
And she's like, no, we're gonna go to the movies. And then we see Joey on the stairs, and he's like,
liar.
Yeah, lies.
Yeah.
Right. See, if it was my brother, he would have told me on me right then and there. But back in the day. But so then Buzz comes. Buzz is, I guess, older boy. He picks her up in a muscle car.
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, she's kind of heeding her father's advice and saying, hey, let's go to a movie instead. And he kind of is a jerk. He's kind of a jerk. He's like...
There's something so he says something about like, oh, well, forget your father. And she takes it to heart almost. She's like, you don't even know him. How could you say that? And that's where you can tell there's definitely a stronger bond and a relationship between her and her father. But I also was trying to figure out, well, what was going on with the mom? Because we don't really get any other, backstory.
They deleted scenes that were shot. If you see the TV version of it, some of those scenes are in the TV version because they had to cut the other version. But there's Buzz actually comes in and has a chat with the parents.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
And it's like...
That would have been fun.
No, well, it's out of the movie. So they actually have it, and he got the impression that his dad doesn't like me very much.
Gotcha.
And so you see that. And then there's a little scene with Joey when he goes back upstairs to bed. He's reading Hansel and Gretel. And in a book under the covers, and his mother comes in and says, how many times have I told you not to be reading at night? And there's an indication that she actually beats him up.
Oh, okay.
Which is one of the motivations for him running out. And by the way, the Hansel and Gretel is a book. We had an illustrator do it, and it looks like the bag lady. The witch looks exactly like the bag lady.
Yeah, I have notes on her too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense because when you have from relationships with friends that I have who have grown up in households with alcoholic parents, there is whether it's intended or not, there's always going to be some kind of thing there because children are a lot smarter than we give them credit for, and they really can feel tension and they can really feel when something's off. And if she's going upstairs and beating up Joey, that makes sense why later on in the movie Joey climbs out the window down the side of the house and just says, I'm just going to walk to the carnival. Right. In the meantime, Buzz and Amy are driving to go pick up her 2 friends because they're going to double date to the carnival. Yeah, she's unable to get him to go to the movies instead. Yeah. And they're in the car and they are, they're smoking weed. She's not partaking. She's kind of upset at Buzz. And when they get to the carnival, her friends get out and they sit in the car. And Amy and Buzz, Buzz is asking Amy, why are you upset? And instead of really apologizing exactly, he's kind of being difficult. And he's like, well, you don't want to ruin your friend's fun instead of, being accountable. I'm a mom, excuse me. Instead of taking accountability for his actions.
He actually says to her, if it's what I said about your father, I'm sorry.
He does?
Yes, he
Okay,
does.
good. Because I was like, why is he gaslighting her? But anyway, that's a different story.
Yeah.
He told, everybody's kind of trying to get her to loosen up a little bit. But that talk kind of irked me a little bit. But nevertheless, she starts smiling and they go inside and fun ensues.
Yes.
Sorry, page 2. So, let's see. So, the carnival, I haven't actually been to a carnival before. I grew up in LA. And we don't have them like that.
Isn't it similar to, say, a county fair kind of thing, but maybe a little bit
similar.
more?
They have an LA county fair, but it's not exactly in LA.
Gotcha.
It's in Pomona.
Okay.
And nobody drives to Pomona.
Gotcha.
It's too hot. But it seems really cool, like super dingy. It looks like it smells. It looks like it's sticky.
It's
You said something earlier that it was there's a lot of texture there. You can feel yourself in there. You can feel yourself kind of sweating a little bit and cutting like the humidity. And I always imagine, I don't know, I didn't remember or pay attention to where it is, like geographically, but it feels like it's like Florida or something, someplace
Well, it actually
humid.
was shot in Florida.
Yeah, I know it's shot in Florida, so it just you can feel that. In Florida, that's where they have like all the carnivals go, right?
I don't know. We've heard that.
They when they go on hiatus, that's where they go.
Yeah.
So we actually got a real carnival that came in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'll tell you something else, because there were budgetary issues. They actually ran the carnival, took the admission, and used the money from the admission to help pay for part of the film.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, it
Well, it
absolutely
looks
is,
pretty
yeah.
cool. They have like all the
it's real.
all the same rides. They have
It's a the only thing that's made up is the fun house.
is the fun house.
Yeah.
So, are there those kind of fun houses in the fairs?
Yeah, they not quite as elaborate, but then again, one of the things that was built into the movie is that you're going from we're having a great time at a carnival, at a county fair. Everything is great. And then, and everything is fake. Everything, we're all safe. It's a real total false sense of security. They switched the order of one of the scenes. I was very upset about it, but I couldn't get them to reverse their decision, because it was supposed to be from fun and games, the rides, giving the audience the experience of really feeling what this is like. And then you're seeing the magician, and the magician, it looks like it's real. Everybody gets really scared and freaked out when the blood comes out of the girl's mouth. But then they go, oh, no, it's a trick. It's a trick.
It's my daughter.
Yeah. Carmela. And then the next scene, you're supposed to go to Madame Zena, who's warning them that something is going to happen to them.
Right.
And then you're supposed to go to the freak show, where, so you're taking it, I mean, it was really...
It's following the journey.
But it's going from fun and games to, oh, wait a minute, maybe there's something really real, because when Madame Zena says it, before she ad-libs that line, it's a great ad-lib, by the way, Sylvia Miles ad-lib, I'll break every fucking bone in your body.
Yeah, that's actually, I really want to talk about that one.
But let me just, so then you were supposed to go to the freak show. And then you realize, oh, wait a minute.
Something's up.
There are real things in this world, and this might not be such a safe, place for you to be in.
So it was in a different order in the movie, is what you're saying, right?
When
They go
they
into
edited
the
the movie,
freak
they
show.
made it.
Yeah, so in the movie now,
Yeah.
so they go into the movie, and then it's kind of like a montage of them going on rides and just having fun, and that's when Buzz does the strongman mallet thing, and he wins her prize.
Notice they don't have the shot of it hitting the bell.
Yeah.
Because he didn't do it, did he? I knew he was a
No,
sissy.
they just they didn't do the shot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they didn't do it. They ran out of time and they didn't do the shot.
Oh.
So they just do it with the sound.
Yeah,
people don't notice it, but
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't notice it. It's like it's like one of my favorite things of Texas Chainsaw. It's implied violence, right? So it's an implied win.
Yeah,
You still got the. Okay, so after they do all of that, the girls kind of reconvene in the bathroom. That's what we really do in the restroom. We kind of just go in and then we talk about what's going on, right? So they go into the restroom, and her friend, what is her friend's name?
Liz.
Liz, yeah.
Liz is telling Amy, oh, if you play your cards right, you don't have to die a virgin, right?
You might
and kind of just giving her a hard time because she's it's her first date with this guy, right? What is she expecting her to do? But anyway, so, and then Amy's like, oh, well, who says that I'm holding out? And it's girls being girls. And next thing you know, there's this,
Yeah, the old lady.
yeah, it's like, what she reminded me of? She reminded me of, in Home Alone 2, there's a bird lady.
I don't remember.
But a very thin bird lady, because she was gross.
Yeah. Now, was she part of was she working at the carnival, or was she
she
just
looks like she
random-
was just a transient.
She's a
Yeah.
bad lady who lives in
Yeah.
the corner. By the way, she was a famous actress, by the way, famous theater actress.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, she did great because she's God is watching,
Yeah.
and freaks them out.
Yeah.
Or God is watching you, and
Yeah.
freaks them out. And then she goes into one of the stalls, and the girls continue their conversation, and she continues with God is watching,
Yeah.
or God is hearing everything you
I
say.
like the line that Liz says where she goes, I don't like people, especially when they're
I hate people,
I don't
especially
like
when
you-
they preach in
preaching in the
bathrooms.
bathroom. Yeah. I thought that was
Like, how
funny.
often does that happen to you, Liz?
By the way, the idea of you taking a towel that you use to wipe your face and then it falls on the floor and the woman picks it up.
Uh-huh.
She's got like your DNA. She's got your sweat on it.
Oh,
No,
gross.
no,
That's
no.
true.
I'm saying, well, it was put in that. I mean, it was like, yeah.
Yeah, like every detail is thought of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can only imagine how much of my DNA is everywhere because I have all this hair and it sheds all the time. But I purposely try not to leave things behind. I'm all about like CSI and SVU. So I'm like, give me back my glass.
Right.
No, I do not want water.
Did you notice, by the way, that she shows up when they're in the phone booths and she's
Yeah.
there?
Yeah. I caught that too.
Okay.
So after that they go into the so they see the magician, they do all that stuff. But they go into the freak they don't go to the magician yet. They go to the freak animals, and the sign says freak animals, and there's a barker in there, and it's played by Kevin
Conway.
Yeah.
Conway, and he's actually really good. I really loved him
He has
as the
3
barker.
roles in it.
Yeah,
he plays
Yeah.
the barker.
plays
I didn't catch that
3
the
different
first time we
barkers.
watched it, but yesterday
Genius.
when we watched it,
Genius.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
great.
He was like able to. There are 3 different ones. There's the one that's kind of a little bit more cleaned up, who's the girls one, and then there's the freak show one, who's a little bit more kind of like grimy. But then there's like the biker guy who's
Right.
who's doing the fun house, or it's the other way around. It's the other way around.
Yeah.
But he just like you couldn't tell that it was him, right?
Right,
All
I
3
didn't-
because
I
he did such a good job.
That was his
of- yeah.
idea, and he actually said, "I'm not doing the role unless you let me do 3 roles. Then
Yeah.
I'll play the part."
Yeah,
It's great. It's
well,
great
it was a
idea.
great idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so they go into, and this is important, I think. I thought that was my glass of wine for a second, and I almost cried. They go into the freak animal show, and I found this a little important. But anyway, they see the following animals. They see a cow with a cleft palate. They see a 2-headed
Another
cow
one with 2 heads.
and
Yeah.
it's like you really want to just have them not stare at them,
No.
but I wouldn't be able to do it. I don't have the stomach for it.
It's real, by the
And
way.
they said, they said that these
yeah.
animals were real, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then they have like the special like freak show like the feature item, and it's this.
It's like fetus in a
It's a
jar
fetus,
or something,
but
right?
the fetus also has like this split up the face, right? And it has kind of like a weird egg shape, but like very like just bulbous, really. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. But the fetus thing is always like, I mean, I grew up watching scary movies, so of course I've seen fetuses in jars before. But that one was particularly interesting because it would have already been born because it had the umbilical cord, and it looked like it had already been attached to something that would have come out. So I don't know if, because I'm not in the movie, obviously, right? So I don't know. But it looks like it was born and died or very, very obviously late stage, but it looked like it could have been almost
first.
full.
Right.
Yeah. So it wasn't just like, embryo. It was like, holy crap, that's a baby. Right?
All of that to me was, I realized the connection later on where, what do we, what is it, the monster? I don't know what
It's his
they would call
brother.
it. Right, it's his brother, right. But
Little
like,
Tad.
that's where you're kind of,
Little Tad on
so
display.
we're like kind of, and then the other
That's
guy
like-
was his father, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
So we don't know who the mother is,
Right.
but
Is it the
there's-
cow?
There's this whole
it's alluded
connection.
to. It's alluded to. There's a joke that's where you hear the carnies speaking. They were real. Some of them were real carnies. Where he said, and the joke is, and I said, "Baby, you're the greatest." And he says, and I saw those 2 big dark eyes glowing at me in the dark, and I heard moo. So it's right out there.
Okay. So we just need to watch it again. But it's that's what I thought. Like the baby is the cow.
It's a hybrid. It's a human. The cow man
with no hooves. Okay, so then they keep walking by, and they're looking at the barker's calling them to the girls, and it's they wiggle for $3, and the girls are like, giving them just a slight show, clothes on, but they just are kind of shimmying, and I thought that was kind of funny. That was funny. But they decide to go into the magician, and this is the magician scene that you saw, and they're in the audience, and the magician is like smoking he's drinking out of a flask, and he's trying to he's trying to get a volunteer from the audience, and there's this magical girl that is scared and doesn't want to go up, and gets into like a coffin.
Yeah.
And the coffin has like a square.
Yeah, like right over
where the heart
heart
is.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And so he's putting the girl in there, and he is going to drive a stake through her heart as he's telling a story about Vlad the Impaler and how he's Dracula. Right?
This is how legends are born. Yes.
And so he puts it in there, and as soon as he jams her with the stake, blood starts coming out of her mouth, and everybody freaks the hell out. And then she like pops out, and then they do off it because that's his sister. Carmela. His daughter, Carmela. Yeah. And it's kind of like, I haven't ever been to a magic show either. I really need to get out of LA sometimes, because that just looked like so fucking awesome.
Yes.
Like it looked like I want to go there and I want to have some fun.
By the way, that was Bill Finley. And I'll tell you something, right? Bill Finley is the Phantom of the Opera, if you know the movie. Yeah. He's the star of Phantom of the Opera, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, just a side note. Tobe calls up Bill Finley and says, I want you to be in my movie, The Funhouse. And Bill Finley says, he's in New York, and I think we're in Miami already. And Finley says, oh, Tobe, I don't know. Is it going to be like your other movies? Meaning alligator, which I guess he didn't want to be an alligator. And Tobe says to him, no, this is really much better. It's Universal Studios. He goes, yeah, well, read me some of my lines. And I'm sitting there next to Tobe, and Tobe takes out the script and he rereads him the Marco Magnificent, some of the lines. And Bill Finley says, okay, I'll do it.
Oh, nice.
And we got him. It really felt good to
like everything sometimes things just fall
into place. Yeah,
it's
cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, so after they go to that one, they
so far they're just enjoying
it, and they're smoking weed, and this
yeah.
time Amy's actually partaking.
Yeah.
And then she gets to decide. No, then they go into Madame
Zena.
And they go in, and she's the fortune teller, and she's telling her fortune. She's reading Amy's palm, and she's telling her fortune, and she says, and this is going to lead to questions later. So, you were born with knowledge of the occult. She tells her, do you have premonitions? And the other kids are just being jerks, and they're laughing.
They're high. Yeah, they just smoke dope.
Yeah, no, I know, but it's like, this is her job, bro. Like,
no.
And then she says she has a long life. She has the 3 bracelets, and a tall, dark stranger will enter and change your life, as they usually do, right? But the kids continue being jerks, and they're laughing. And this is when the fortune teller gets up, and she gets pissed off, and I think rightfully so, and says, tells them to leave, and they need to leave, and he goes,
I think she kind of even breaks character a little bit in the movie. Like,
well,
I think
she does. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because it's real. She's actually having a premonition that these kids are going to die.
Well, she tells them, don't come back, or I'll break every bone in your fucking body. Yeah. And I'm like,
it's great.
I'm going to marry this woman.
Yeah, that was great. That
was just like improvised.
That was Sylvia Miles, who was in Midnight Cowboy and a whole bunch of other things. Great actress. And she improvised that line. Yes.
That's great.
That's cool.
That's great. It was a great scene. Culturally speaking, we do believe in fortune tellers and card readings and stuff. Yeah. So I can be sensitive to people being disrespectful about it. But this was just awesome. Like, if everybody just reacted the way she did, like, you can get out of here, I'm I'm gonna get mad. Like I think that's awesome.
When Richie takes his wallet and bites on it to stop him from laughing,
Yeah.
I crack up every time I see that scene. It's just hysterical. They're laughing. It's infectious for me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So afterwards, they go and they see the girls, right? Is it this time?
You mean the little like burlesque show?
Yeah,
thing
the
that's going
burlesque
on?
show.
Yeah, where they go outside and they cut a little hole in the back. And then,
Yeah, they cut a hole in the back and they're looking at these, older women stripping, and you see the reaction of the guys because they're behind the women dancing, and they can see the audience, and these guys are just. Is that how guys are in strip clubs? Because they're like just so into it, like they've never seen a boob in their life, and it's just like you can feel their energy, and it was a delightful scene because you feel their energy, and you're like, oh man, like, and then they're fighting for being able to see the through the little hole in there, and then Liz is unable to because Archie's like. Archie?
Richie.
Sometimes I do that. Richie's like, oh no, wait your turn. And
Wait your
she's
turn.
like, I'm
Right,
going to
yeah.
go find my own hole. She goes,
Right.
I can't believe I just said
That's my line. That's in the
Yeah.
script. Yeah, that's in the script.
And she turns the corner and some guy's looking in his own hole. She drops her cotton candy in.
Yeah, where he's taking a piss out there on the side.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought he was looking through his own hole, but I guess I was wrong.
Yeah.
But it's just funny. It's just a funny scene. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, that was good too. I thought that was pretty funny too. I like the line exactly what she said. I can't believe I just said that. It's like, yeah.
Like I'll go find my own pervert hole. So then afterwards, they still haven't gotten to the fun house, but Richie has a brilliant idea. Let's spend the night.
Sleepover.
Yeah, let's spend the night. And as a teenager, you do some questionable shit. Like you definitely. I've spent the night in cars just because I didn't want to not hang out with my friend that night. Like kids are stupid sometimes. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I get where they were coming from. As a mother, I'm like, oh my God, my kids are never leaving my side. But the girls, they all decide that it's a brilliant idea. At this point, has Joey already seen them? Joey got to
Well,
the...
He never meets up with them.
He hasn't
No,
met up with
but
them.
he spots them at some point.
Well, not yet though, but he probably is on his way to the.
Right. This whole time he's walking over there, and he gets stopped by some guy in a truck who's like, hey, little boy, do you need a ride? And then pulls out a gun on him. What the hell?
That's something that I thought Tobe would love, and Tobe loved it.
Yes. Well, I mean, why are you doing that? Like, why are you walking all the way to the carnival? Don't you have parents kind of thing?
Oh, wow.
But then now that I know he got beat, I feel bad for thinking that. Jerk, Joey. Okay, so afterwards they get into the the fun house has the cars that what it reminds me of House of a Thousand Corpses.
Well, kind of, sort of, yeah. Like it's sort of like a roller coaster cart, but it doesn't go fast. It's just kind of
right. So it's like it's on a track.
Right. Yeah.
And it's two, and you go in, and it's just just like a little ride, kind of like the Snow White ride. At
Sure.
Disneyland.
Yeah.
And so
you see this in the background. This monster, but with a Frankenstein mask
so
on
the
or
person
whatever.
helping people
It's
get
very
on there.
like you don't really. It's not in the foreground at that time, and you just think that he's kind of like a background character in the movie at this point in time.
Yeah, but he is definitely. So I think he was a mime was the person wearing the mask, right?
Well, the actor who played it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So because his movements are so perfect for the scenes because they're very deliberate. Like you understand what his character is and why, just as he's standing there and walking awkwardly.
Wayne Dobe played it. He was a professional mime, and the guy was a genius. It was amazing that he.
Yeah, he moved so purposefully.
Yeah,
and it was really good. But he's the carny that's loading people into the cars going into the funhouse, and that's all we've really seen him.
It's
other
kind
than
of like
he
pushing
also
the carts in, right?
he's also the only other time we see him is like in the background, like you mentioned, but also coming out of the girls' tent.
right.
Right, because Frankenstein's monster needs love too. So they get in, and that's when I notice Joey noticing them going into the funhouse. So he knows they're there. And maybe he thinks he can get a ride home with them. Maybe he thinks he can, just hang out with them now that he's made the trek safely, which is a miracle in itself, all the way back to the carnival. Okay. So as the carnival, as they're going through the funhouse, Joey's outside waiting, and he sees two back-to-back, what are they called? Carts?
The gondolas.
The gondolas. Okay,
Yeah.
two of the gondolas empty.
They're empty, yeah.
Right, and then Frankenstein's monster doesn't know. He's like, oh, I guess there's some empty ones there. But Joey's like, what is going on?
He knows something's up at
and
this
he
point in time.
waits there, he waits there, and then it starts closing down. And as it's closing down, he's got to go. So he makes his way out. And we think he's gone. But he's not. Right, he's not. He tries to come back in. He gets spooked by the lady, the bag lady. He gets spooked, and he runs back out, tries to get out, and then he jumps the fence in like record time. And I'm like, oh my god, like what is this kid? What is it? American Gladiator style. Just hops over it, and then he sees that Buzz's car is still in the parking lot, which I'm like, if I was going to try to be sneaky, and I would have moved my car. Like if I was going to spend the night somewhere I'm not supposed to, I would have parked around the corner. But whatever. It's at this time it was the 80s and nobody pays attention. So was it set in the 80s or it's set in the 70s, or is that just not?
We set it in. It's a universal time because the carnies are all they're all that way.
Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing that really dates it, I would say, in that sense. Yeah. But yeah, so far again, it's all just been kind of like a regular outing at a carnival or,
but you're supposed to get that feeling. Again, they reversed. She actually says at one point when she sees the fetus, she says, it's a trick, it's rubber, just like the magician. And they haven't seen the magician yet.
Right, yeah.
Oh.
So they reversed the order.
Yeah. I can understand, because then you would feel like this constant fear of dread as the movie progresses. This way, there were some parts where I was like, oh, okay. But knowing that, like, after you see it once, you're like, wait, I thought this is when this happened. So I can kind of see that.
So their whole idea at this point in time is to hide in the funhouse just to wait for it to close so they can sleep over. And obviously they're trying to, like, get it on. And
they're trying to make babies.
Make out and have fun. And that's pretty much, I guess, what their intention was just to have a...
In the script, there was a series of fun and games that went on before, which they didn't use. The first thing is Buzz says, I have to go get something. And Richie says, oh, you know what? He's going to scare us. He's going to come back and scare us. And then you see a masked figure come over to them, and they know it's him. They know it's him. And, and it actually is him. And so it's played really like, you son of a bitch, you tried to scare us and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But it was like all fun and games the way you would have imagined.
Until it wasn't.
Until it wasn't.
Yeah. So they're inside and they're making out, and then they hear noises.
Yeah.
And they realize that they are upstairs from somebody's office, room, apartment, whatever, their living space. And it is Frankenstein's monster, the carny, not the actual one, not Boris. And there's, what is her name? Madame
Zena.
Madame Zena.
Yeah.
And he is trying to get her to get him off for some money. And, I can understand that. I can understand the crap out of that. And at first he's like, here's this much money. And she's like, no.
She's like, no,
here's this much money. No. Finally, he gives her $100. There. She's like, that's enough. Yeah. And she goes and poor guy, you kind of feel bad for him because he's like, oh, I really want to do this. And all she has to do is really kind of just pull on him a few times, and next thing you know, he's done. And I understand that I would get upset. That's $100. That's a new pair of shoes, But he kind of goes overboard. He gets really upset and then like starts attacking her and inadvertently maybe kills her because I don't think he understands this means death, right? So he kills her. Meanwhile, they're watching from above, and they are freaked the hell out, and to the point where the when the camera goes up to them, you kind of feel like when it kind of dies down, like, oh crap, like I gotta breathe, like, oh my god, I'm stuck in this, like, what do we do? So they freak out and they are trying, they're like, we gotta get out of here, and they just start walking. And I don't know if maybe it just wasn't shown now that we see that there's a lot of deleted scenes, but I thought, well, why does it feel like they're lost? Why aren't they just following the tracks? But whatever. And might I add, if Amy's such a prude, why is she the one with her shirt off when Liz still has all her clothes on?
Right.
Details. Also boobs.
Well, she was loosening up, it was that little bit of weed that she smoked.
That's all she needed. That's all you need?
Yeah.
Okay. So
now I think that this is when the father of the monster is coming back and is talking to him. That's when he ends up realizing there's something wrong, and he sees the dead body, right?
So sorry, before that, as they're making their way out, they see a door and they head towards it, and it's the door to the apartment downstairs. Okay. And that's when Richie goes in there and he's like, oh, I need to check if she's really dead.
Yeah.
And what he really does is goes robs them. Like, how are you going to rob a carnival
he saw
with
that
a
money
dead body right there,
with
obviously a monster coming to get you at some point?
Well, he didn't know that. Now,
boys.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I got it because I was there for 10 days of pre-production and then I was off the set. I got a call from Tobe while they were filming saying Miles Chapin wants to speak to you, and he says, "Okay, fine." He says, "Larry, I love this and all, but I need to have motivation. I'm an actor. Why did I take the money?" He asked the question. The actor asked the question, and I said, because you got this competition thing going on with Buzz, and Buzz smears some blood on his face. And he's watching you call an asshole. And he says, and you want to show off, you want to be the wise guy. When this is over, you want to show that you got
pull up this wad of cash.
And then you say, I'm splitting it with all you guys. So he goes, okay, fine, I get it. Now I can do it. And he did it really well, by the way.
Yeah, he did. So we don't know he took the money yet. We don't see that. Yeah. But what we see is there's another door just past the door to the apartment, and they think that they can get out. So he goes, he checks, and he goes, yeah, no, she's dead, because he's like, I'm just going to check on her. And but they can't get out that door. They cannot do it. And so next thing you know, they go back to where they were already hiding.
By the way, did you see the look on his face when he thought he was getting out and everything was cool? And then it's stuck and he goes, can't you open it? The look on Richie's face that he's just done this horrible, stupid thing and he got caught. And they're stuck.
So why wouldn't he just take it back? Why wouldn't he be like, oh, well, we're going to be here. Let me maybe not mess with it anymore. It's a dude thing.
Well, it also was not there was $100 bill. So, it probably was a whole lot more than that.
Took the whole.
Later on, you see, it's a wad of cash.
It's
empty. Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. So not just a couple bucks he took. He was like, hey, it's a lot of money here.
That's their whole revenue for an entire... day?
Did you notice when he bites the dust that the money trickles down like rain?
Yeah. So they go back there, and then they're kind of just huddled there, waiting to, for the day, for whatever, it's a miracle to open the door, somebody to come looking for them, whatever it is. And, but they're still scared because somebody just died. And that's when you hear that the Barker has come back, and he is... the father of Frankenstein's monster.
Right, yeah.
What is his name in the movie?
Gunther.
Yeah. Gunther?
Yeah.
Okay, Gunther.
Is the name of the monster or the
monster is Gunther.
Yeah, Gunther. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so Gunther, he's Gunther's father. And he's, telling him, oh, why did you kill one of your own? This is family. When it's the stupid people from town, I don't care, whatever, but this, you don't mess with your own people, them, right?
Yeah.
And I feel that.
Yeah.
I feel that real hard. And so he's like, okay, we'll take care of it. We'll blame it on the locals. He kind of touches a little bit on the fact that he did it before in the next town over. So this is the messed up carnival or Funhouse. Yeah, carnival, right? Fair.
Yeah.
And then he's like, Gunther hands him $100 that he took back. And he's like, you paid her $100? I could have given you, one of the tent girls for, I don't know, like $15 or something like that. And I'm like, I don't think I would have done it for $15. I would have done it for $100. He's like, drool comes out of his mask, and he just, I don't know.
Yeah.
He looks slimy. I don't think he bathes very frequently. And so he says, you can hear him talk for the first time, and he said something like father, and the dad gets really mad, and that's when we find out that's his dad. But he gets so mad, he's like, I told you never to call me that. And I'm like, oh my God, now I feel even worse for this guy. Yeah, he just killed a whole bunch of people, but he can't have sex. He doesn't have family that treats him right. Like, you feel for him, and you're like, that's why serial killers come from these households, right? Jesus.
And then, now we're getting close to the point where I think he takes the mask off finally,
so
right?
he goes to put the dad goes to put the $100 back inside
he notices
the safe,
the money's gone.
and the money's gone.
Yeah.
And Gunther's freaking out. He's like, I have no idea. And the way that he disciplines his son is he makes him hit himself, because you hear him saying, hit yourself harder, hit yourself harder. And he's attacking his head, and he's hitting himself, and he's like flailing and throwing himself around. And at one point, it's kind of like The Fly. Like, he like pulls his mask out, and it's all gooey and nasty and gross. And there's drool. Oh my God, the drool just got me. Like, the drool's the worst part.
A lot of glycerin used in the movie. Glycerin, yeah.
Yeah, it's so gross. It's so disgusting. And he lets out this scream, and you're like, oh my God, this is so disgusting. But also, I knew it was the cow.
Well, it's the cowman.
It's the cowman. It's so gross. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And in the gloves, he's also like wearing gloves or whatever. But so anyway, during all of this, everybody, all the kids are looking down,
watching,
and they're watching. And then Richie has this lighter in his pocket, and it slips out because they're looking through the slats on the floor, and it falls exactly down to the ground.
Right. Yep.
And they're busted, and they're like, they're trying to get them, coax him to come down. He's like, I have your lighter. And he keeps lighting it. And I'm like, I don't care who gave you that lighter. And if it was made of solid gold, you do not say a word. Like, I'm not going to come down there for a lighter. I just saw all of this shit happen, man. Like,
right. And they know they got to try to get out of there, but they also are kind of like in a place where they don't want to move and make a lot of noise or anything like that. And,
yeah. So this is when they leave the room, when Gunther and the Barker leave the room, this is where you see them, and you see them finally go, because it looks like they have been holding it in for such a long time. Like, I couldn't imagine breathing that entire time. Like,
just trying to be still.
Like, just like this, don't do a thing. Yeah. Heart stop beating. Like, you're too loud. Like, that's terrifying.
Yeah,
that's terrifying.
And so they're basically like,
they're gonna get him.
Yeah, search for him.
Yeah, and he says something
him.
like, take your gloves off. We're gonna get to work. Yeah, we got work to do. Oh my gosh! And he has these gnarly, like, gross hands. Oh, so gross. This guy's nasty.
This is, by the way, what was very different about this is it actually turned into a monster movie.
Yes.
And there were very few real monster movies that were being done at that time.
What other monster movies were from the 80s? I'm not really good with dates and stuff.
I don't know. I can't think of one off the top of my head as far as,
Yeah, I don't think there were any. I mean, there was, what was it, Monster Squad, that funny one with all those kids?
Yeah, but that was, I don't know, that was kind of more like, I don't know, to me, again, it was sort of like a comedy almost, but
yeah, it was. Okay, so this whole time, Joey has been waiting outside. Poor Joey.
Yeah.
He's been waiting outside, and he's trying to get in to see his sister, or trying to wait for her, or, like, because, he might be scared of whatever, but he really gives a shit about his sister, and that's nice. And you see that in siblings that come from families that have their set of issues. My brother and I are pretty damn close, and I can't imagine, like, my sister and I are not, but we didn't have to go through the same trials and tribulations. So those kind of things usually bring kids together. And at this point, he's like, well, I know. I'm going to get in by going underneath the stage. And he goes underneath the stage, and as he's going in, here comes Gunther, like just jump scare, and you're like, how did he even get there? But it does tell you that there is a way out of the funhouse if you go that certain way. And also at one point he shakes doors right after the people inside are kind of like running from some sound, and you realize, oh, he's just on the other side of this wall. It's so frustrating. Yeah. Get them out of there. You could have survived. Spoiler alert, some people die here. Okay, so back inside, all of the animatronics are coming to life. There's one that's supposed to be Winston Churchill, and I think he looks like a fat Tom Hanks. Yeah. And I really love it. It's adorable. So there's all these like old school animatronics, and they look like old school, like just like very harsh and jerky movements, and they're super cool. So everything's coming to life, and this is while they're walking like the maze of the funhouse, and everything is just like there's a moment of just chaos, and this noose happens to come and falls right onto Richie, and like it pulls him up.
Yeah, and I was wondering, like, well, where did that come from? Because we don't really ever see, like, who dropped the news.
This is when Richie tells his story, the famous story about him trying to scare his brother by hiding in the closet. And he finishes telling his story, and then the news comes down from the top. Yeah, well, they have total control of the funhouse. They know what they're doing. They're on top, and they live in this place.
Is there like a catwalk, and maybe the dad dropped the noose perfectly on his head and yanked him up? That's some carny strength right there. Yeah, that's...
No, he probably got the kid to do it. Gunther did it.
Yeah.
So,
he's got strength of a cow, that one.
Yeah. And so this, apart from the Madame Zena incident, is basically the first death in the movie, I guess, right?
Right.
Yeah. And and then so Richie, wait, so am I wrong? But I thought Richie was the one that got the axe in the head.
He does.
Yeah,
he does, right? Yeah. Okay.
He does.
Because in the next scene he comes back, and they don't know what it is. I think it's the monster that's coming.
Yeah, there's a gondola coming down the track, and for some reason there's a real axe.
Well, all the props are real. All the props are real.
Really, like they have skeletons in there too. The skeletons.
Yeah. No, well, actually, talking about skeletons, I'm jumping ahead though. There was a scene where she's actually being chased at the very end, and she runs headlong into one of the mannequins, and it cracks open, and there's a body underneath it. Because, they didn't do it. They left it out. They didn't shoot it. It was supposed to take the script to a whole nother level.
Gross.
There was supposed to be a real chase scene that went on for like 10 minutes, and it gives you a heart attack watching the chase scene after Buzz is killed. By herself, and they never shot the chase scene.
Wow. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, in this case, they the gondola's coming, and the girls are telling him, "Get him to Buzz, get it," and he you hear a sickening
crush,
boom, like and it's Richie with an axe in his head, and then he continues off.
I'm very proud of that
down
scene. very proud. No, because that's one of these. What is the worst thing that could happen? You just buried an axe in your friend's head.
I mean, there are very very few things that could be worse than that.
Right. Yeah.
And so, but Liz, she's a teenager. That's the love of her life. That's her end all be all, right? And so she's like going insane, and she's like running after this gondola with Richie, like an axe sticking out of his head. And next thing you know, she falls because there's like a false bottom of the floor.
Trap door or whatever.
And she just falls. Yeah. And then you're like, well, there's another one. They're dropping like flies now. Right? And it's just, I don't know.
Well, not quite. It's a setup for what's going to happen to her.
And so then what we find out later is that Liz actually falls into what is like an air duct.
Yeah, it's like a ventilation shaft.
Yeah, and there's like this huge fan, and you're like, oh, she can't get out there. She'll get chopped in half. I've seen a lot of movies. She's going to get chopped into pieces. And no, what comes is Gunther around the corner, and he's kind of like just like slowly approaching. And you see that she has, like a dagger behind her because Buzz had Buzz had given them the weapon while he was
Yeah.
going to take the axe to the guy, right? And so she has it like right behind her, and it's like just touching her fingertips. And Gunther's approaching, and she's telling him, "I can make you feel good."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "I'll do it. It's not worth
Well,
it."
But it
It's
also
not
goes to
worth
show
it.
that, you know, he kind of falls for it because he
gets
just wants some
close.
loving, you know?
And so
Like,
he gets
just,
nice and close. It's a tender moment for her to stab the dagger in his
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
Which, I mean, oh my God, like then you take like 6 showers afterwards, right? But you know, that's when he freaks out, and that's when it's this brilliant movements, right? He's just like flittering, like almost like
Yeah.
like a moth on a flame, like just kind of you just see like his hair is like wild and like white, and it looks like, to me anyway, it looks like just wings just flapping. And he's like,
yeah, in the first viewing of it, I was, you know, not knowing where it was going to go at the end. I was like, oh no, they killed him or whatever. And I was like, well, you know, I was kind of like getting to like Gunther in a way, you know, even though he was like
You feel
kind of a
bad
bad
for
guy.
him.
He's
Yeah.
supposed to be a
Yeah.
sympathetic.
And
guy.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh no, he's dead. And, you know, but he didn't die, which is good, at least.
he
you
just
know.
wanted some strange. That's all he wanted, some loving. And so, but then he attacks Liz, and you know, he's like attacking her with his nasty, gnarly claws.
Mhm.
Like, oh my God, wash your hands. It's so gross. He's like really gross. He did a great job because I'm like repulsed. I want to hug him, but like through a hazmat suit.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
I don't know if that was the intention, but you really want to feel for him,
He's supposed to be
but
a
you also
sympathetic
don't
character.
want him to be close.
Right. And so so is this where Liz dies now, or?
Yeah, so that's Liz. She
yeah.
died, yeah. And then,
So now we're down to the final 2 right now, right? It's Amy and Buzz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right. So at this time, Joey is still out there, and he had gotten, he was captured by a carny.
Mhm.
And you have no idea what's happening to him. You fear the worst, right?
Well, it was a triple scare. The monster tries to get him. He bumps into the woman,
Right,
into
yeah.
the bag lady, and then he runs and hits into somebody else, and then that person grabs him, and it's
Right.
the carny who takes him into the.
And you're like, oh crap, something's gonna happen to Joey because this is the carnival where those kids went missing or whatever.
Yeah.
And at this point, after the Liz death scene, this is when he wakes up. And everything's all right. This was a good carny. The heart of gold.
Yeah, he was like, well, we're going to call your parents or something like that.
He had called parents. The parents
but
were there. and-
There's something insidious about that. The way he's stroking the kids.
yeah, it was cringe factor, like
Yeah.
super cringy
Like this,
because you're
this,
like,
yeah,
okay.
like is Joey still completely intact?
Right.
Yeah, but also, did he faint? Do kids faint in that scenario? Like, how is he knocked out? Like, what's going on here? Like, you know, I don't know. Just my mind goes weird places. But it is, you know, Joey's safe. His parents are there. Excuse me. The parents are there. They pick him up and they take him. And they take him to the car and they're carrying him because he's like such a little bundle of joy. Like they're treating him really nicely. Maybe, and the mother's holding him very closely. When they get in the car, even she like sits him like right next to her, like in the front seat.
Yeah.
And maybe it's guilt from having beat his ass
No,
earlier.
why?
No, she actually says, "I know one little boy was never going to run away again."
Yes,
Yeah.
but she's not wrong.
Now, I was wondering at that time, like, how come he didn't say anything to his parents about, like, hey, my sister's in there or whatever.
Because of that voiceover scene that they put in there.
Right,
which-
so this is where they're looking at, they're putting him in the car, but he's looking at the funhouse, and you hear Amy's voice saying, I'm gonna get you,
Right, yeah.
So my question is he concerned about her getting him, or is he just so mad at her for leaving him behind that he just
Like,
doesn't care anymore?
First of all, she sees her parents. She's watching.
Yeah,
them.
she's
watching
She's
them.
screaming,
Yeah.
and the fan is preventing her from getting to reaching out. No, she had terrorized him by saying, "I'm going to get you so bad, you're not going to know when, you're not going to know where."
So he thinks it's a prank, maybe?
And no, he's just basically he's terrified. He's just absolutely terrified.
I was almost wondering if that was his way of like, well, that solves my problem. She's, you know, like
Yeah.
she's you know, out of my hair now, you know, like, but I don't know. That was kind of when I first saw it, that was what I was like, oh, well, the reason why probably like he didn't say anything is because if she does come back, she's going to get him back. But then if she's disappears and is gone, then she's gone. And he's just the number one sibling now, you know?
Yeah, because that's
one and
how it
only
works,
son.
Stefan.
I don't know. It just
But
seemed to be like an easy solution for him.
He is catatonic at that point.
Yeah.
And you know, it's she. When they were editing the movie, they left that line out, and I said to I think it was Verna Fields who actually, you know, who had done Jaws, very famous. She was an executive at Universal Studios. So I said, well, wait a minute. We have this little voiceover of her saying, "I'm going to get you so bad."
Yeah, you
never
have to
know.
kind of explain it.
And
yeah.
they put it in. They forgot to put it in. So.
Yeah, it definitely like just reminds you that this is what's happened. So.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But yeah, so Amy's looking from out from inside the funhouse, but there's this wind thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, and it's like a turbine, and it's going so loud. But those things, when you get close, they're really loud. So nobody can hear her from the outside, and she's screaming. And again, she's screaming "Daddy" and "Mother," but mostly "Daddy."
Yes.
And then you're like, "Oh, that sucks so hard." Like, oh my gosh. So in this case, who remains alive? Buzz and Amy so far.
Yeah.
And they're continuing through the funhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have to catch up on my notes. I don't know where we are.
I had one thing I just wanted to, this is kind of maybe going back a little bit, but in the notes that you had sent over, you were talking about when the Barker's convincing his son to do one more bad thing. And then you have like him saying, your little brother, Tad, like on display. So was that something that, was that one of the bad things that he had to do like previously before?
No, the bad thing that he has to do is he has to kill these kids.
Them, right,
He has to kill these kids. And because he says if you're going to get caught, you're going to wind up dead like your brother.
Oh,
Tad.
like
Gotcha.
Tad. Okay, gotcha.
So, but and it was done. It was interesting because they had asked me that Kevin Conway wanted one extra scene, and that was the scene that I came up with, where it's almost like a confession booth. He's sitting like he's trying to convince his son to do this one bad thing, and I thought
because he's sobbing in the background, right?
Yeah, and he says, and then afterwards, if you do this one bad thing, I'll do anything you want. I'll take you fishing.
Yeah, I thought that was so tender. I'm like,
Yeah, I'm just picturing him with a salmon in his mouth.
so crazy. Yeah, jumping in the water, face fishing. Oh my God! But I'll take you fishing today.
And I was really, I was over the top there. He says, "God is my witness." He's quoting Gone with the Wind. As God is my witness, I don't hate the sound of your voice, which I thought was very touching.
I thought that was funny. Yeah. Oh, he what did he say? I forget when I get to drinking, I just forget to be gentle with you, and I'm like.
Yeah, it's very,
I think that's so sweet.
Yeah.
All right. At this point, Buzz and Amy are still being stalked, and they're kind of being followed, and they get to this point where. I
mean, they haven't been able to find their way out either. They're just kind of stuck in the maze, like, you know.
If they get to the exit, they go through the glass like supermarket doors.
Yeah.
Where the gondolas end and they stack up.
Yeah. So at this point. Finally, it's a standoff. It is the Barker, and it is Buzz. And, like, what are you doing this to me? And he goes, I'm protecting my family. And you're like, that's your
family.
That's your family. Like, all right, give me the flyboy, right? Like, it's protecting your family. And they start brawling, right? They get into fisticuffs, right?
Well, first Richie shows up, by the way. The corpse of Richie.
Yes. Richie rolls in, Richie rolls in, and Buzz, understandably upset, attacks the Barker, right? And they get into a fight, and then Buzz is a pretty strong guy, he's wearing very tight clothing, so you can tell he's a very strong man. It's the early 80s, and it's not a bad time for men's fashion, in my opinion. Yeah. And so he's fighting, and he's on top of him, and they're punching each other, and the Barker's pretty strong too, because he's holding his own. But finally, in the tussle, Buzz manages to push him back, and he impales him on like this sword that is sticking out.
Yeah.
And you, so gross. It's so gross. But that's when you're like, oh, okay, good. Phew. Right? Amy's the whole time she's just screaming when they're fighting, and I'm like, well, why don't you do something about it instead of just screaming? But fight or flight is different for everybody. So he probably has a set of keys on him. So he goes to search him, and this is when Barker's like pretending to be dead, and when the Buzz gets close, he like pulls him in, so it kind of the sword that's still sticking out of his stomach is sticking into Buzz, and I'm like, that's hepatitis. So gross. And then he pulls away, and that's when is that when Gunther comes in?
Buzz shoots him.
Buzz
shoots the Barker. He has the gun and he shoots him 3 times.
I forgot about the gun.
He shoots him 3 times. Yeah.
I mean, that's overkill. I mean, he's not going to go anywhere.
No, by the way, that scene with the sword, it was written in the script, but the idea, this is where Tobe was an absolute genius. The idea of him grabbing Buzz and trying to he's almost like trying to screw him with the sword as he's pulling him towards him. Is absolutely amazing. It's like incredible, and then he shoots him.
Yeah, it like matches the spot where Amy is getting stabbed with the fake knife in the shower, and it's funny because in the shower scene you see a little red spot where the practice stabs.
Yes. I was just going to say, absolutely, yes. You're very good. Yes,
That's what I do. Thank you.
There's a little spot there, right?
Yeah. I'm like, is that Target or have they just done this scene before? Okay, so then Gunther shows up, and of course,
it's his father.
It's his father, like versus his brother. It's his father, and so he.
Buzz has a gun. It misfires 2 times. He yells at her, "Get out of here! Get out of here!" He's commanding her to get out of there, and she listens.
Yeah, good.
Because Buzz is a good. I mean, I like Buzz.
He ended up being a good guy.
Yeah, I think so.
He ended up being a protector. He ended up being, the level-headed one, which is good.
Yeah, I think so.
He ended up being a great guy, and so she's like trying to get out, but like, where do you really go? Like, this is not your territory.
Yeah,
you have no idea. You barely remember to follow the tracks to try to get somewhere.
Right.
You have no keys. You have no weapons. What are you gonna do? So she's going through. Is this when she goes in through like what is like a King Kong's mouth kind of thing?
She's like,
yeah, and so she's
going. No, that's actually she hears gunshots. And she wants to see what happened.
And that's when an animatronic is carrying out Buzz's body in a very dramatic fashion.
Yes, but with a very small amount of blood, which I was very disappointed in because it should have been really bad. Yeah.
So, did he die from gunshot wounds, from being slashed by Gunther, or just beating up? Because it really is just like a speck of blood.
In the script that he had been eviscerated really badly, and it was a horrible thing to see, and they just did a small amount of blood, which I didn't understand.
That would have been lovely.
Yeah,
because I imagine with those claws that he does, do some
damage.
Some real damage, kind of like where you imagine a bear or a tiger
I think they wanted to soften it because he had turned out to be like a very heroic character at the end. So
then he should have done that to Richie. But that was.
And then she takes off.
Then she takes off.
Now, and this was supposed to be like the 10-minute chase scene where the monster, Gunther, is calling after her and he's saying, "Father, Father." It's almost if he wants to imprint on Amy.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and it was he's like sniffing her out. And
that's creepy.
And he's like following, and he's going, "Father, Father," and it's like it's his new surrogate father that he wanted. So
Oh my God.
And notice he doesn't say mother because he doesn't have a mom, basically. He only knows a father, right? So, but he would have never even known that was his mother, even if, he probably never learned the word mother, right? So,
but there was supposed to be this fantastic chase scene that went on, and it was supposed to
I'm all about chase scenes.
Remember in Suspiria when she's running through at the end, that goes on like for 10 minutes. and it's totally, it just totally freaks you out. She's hysterical. And this was supposed to be what was happening with Amy, and it's almost as if Amy is hallucinating now. And you're going to see lots of really weird, like she just took acid or something, because she's out of her mind. And that was when she runs head on into one of the figures, and it cracks open, and you see there's a face on a person underneath.
Oh my gosh.
So if there was a face underneath the figure, that means other people have been
They've done
murdered.
it before,
Yeah, they've done it
lots
before.
of times, yes.
If
yes.
this movie were to be remade, it would be so gory and creepy and just like I imagine it being so juicy.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Just like really just right?
Working on it.
All right, you make sure I come and see it, okay? That would be like an I don't know, like Eli Roth movie, just like
He was supposed to direct it, and he actually said he loved the script. He just didn't love what happened to the kids, and he would have had them, being like eviscerated and fingers pulled off and all and tortured.
Well, it's Eli Roth.
Yeah.
Okay, so at this point, she finds herself back. Amy is running, and she finds herself in the room where the murder took place. And she walks in, and of course, there's Madame Zena laying on the cot where she's laying dead, and Liz. And you see all these gnarly gashes from like claws, and she is like losing her mind. Yeah. And then at this point, Gunther is trying to break in through the door, and she realizes that there's a door. Like she's like backing up to the wall, and then she realizes it's like a door, like a passageway.
No, she falls against it. She actually falls and breaks a piece of furniture.
So she goes in there, and it's like in the inner workings of the funhouse.
She falls.
Yeah, and she goes down, and then she starts climbing down, and I remember this. I don't know why. Maybe it's a girl thing, but I remember she drops her shoes down first, and then she starts climbing down, and I'm like, that's actually pretty freaking smart.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
And I've seen the movie 10,000 times.
Yeah,
I do not remember that.
Yeah, well, I thought about it because you need grip.
Yes.
Right? And those wedges are not going to do it for you.
Okay.
From experience. But so she finds herself like in the bowels of the funhouse, and there's like pulleys and gears and steam and electrical panels, and she's like trying to hide there, and she hears Gunther like crawling around, like trying to get there, and she has no idea where he's coming from, and you get like tingles in your spine, and she's like trying to hide. She finally is like standing on a corner somewhere, and then she turns around, and this ladder comes down, and Gunther comes down, and you're like.
Yep. Yeah.
And she has this crowbar, and this is where you cracked up because she hits him, and then you're like, okay, what's that gonna do? So she hits him with the crowbar, and it's like, you don't do that.
She gets to hit him because the skeleton pops up. This is what it's distracting.
It distracts her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It distracts him. Yeah. And but it was like.
No,
you're not going to do any damage.
She whacks him. People say she doesn't do anything in the movie. I'm going to do a clip on Instagram where it's just her continually whacking him, like repeated over and over again, because she really puts all her force into this.
She does.
Yeah.
But this guy can pick people up with one arm.
Yeah.
Like it's just kind of like it's a very real like how do I say this? I don't know how to explain it. I was going to say David and Goliath, but she doesn't have a slingshot.
Right.
So she's like struggling against him, and what was it? He takes the crowbar and he reaches back to her and hits the electrical panel and gets electrocuted.
Right.
And then at the same time, does he get like hooked onto one of the pulleys?
He goes flying,
Yeah, and then he gets crushed in between.
Yeah,
he takes a little ride around.
Yeah, he takes a ride around. Poor guy. We'll adopt you, but we need to fix your face. And but then he finally gets like crushed in between these gears, and then he goes and he reaches out and he grabs her, and he's like pulling her, and she's like, "Oh my God!" Like, what do you do then? Like, what do you do then?
It's almost sympathetic, like he's reaching out to her. Not that I'm.
Especially now that you said he was trying to imprint on her, and I'm like, "Oh my God, it breaks my heart." So this has been a very touching movie. Go home and hug your family. But you know, eventually he like lets go, he dies, and she makes her way out of the funhouse.
Yeah.
And she comes out of the funhouse and she stumbles into daylight.
Yeah. It's the
And
next
everybody
morning
else
now.
in the carnival is kind of just minding their business, and she's super disheveled. The bag lady's hanging out, and you're like, what now?
Yeah. And that's, I guess, also the final shot is when they did that big the zoom out with the crane shot or whatever
Yeah, but
that
they have
they
the
did.
funhouse
where-
lady coming back to life.
Yeah.
She
Yeah, so the funhouse has this lady, like this
Oh,
huge fat
yeah,
animatronic,
right.
and she's like cackling the entire time.
No, she you think it's over now. By the way, in the script, before it comes back, before the funhouse lady comes back to life, I have the chain snap, and Gunther comes back to life.
Oh.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because I was wanting to do that sequel. no, it's in the script.
Oh my
and,
gosh.
and only after the chain snaps do you go back up there, and Amy's looking at the thing, and the thing starts laughing again. And so, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
Interesting.
Interesting. I bet you there's going to be a remake of the Funhouse, and it's going to be gory as hell. And then they're going to have that chain snapping scene, and then there'll be a sequel.
Yeah.
I did have I kind of wondered, and I guess maybe it's just because there were a bunch of carnies in there, but nobody seemed to, think that it was strange that there was a disheveled
The
girl.
carny,
Yeah.
shade.
There was like,
The
whatever.
torn clothes, like,
Yeah.
That happens all the time.
Yeah.
By the way, people are asking, so how did she finally get out? Nobody could get out. But you see in that last scene when all hell is breaking loose, the timbers start falling down from the sublevel, and that's how.
I thought it was, okay, well, the electrical panel, like, unlocked electronic doors of something,
No,
maybe
it's
something. Like
the
that.
whole place is disintegrating down there. You actually see this giant like log, support beam come flying
Yeah.
down, and she wanders out.
So my question is this.
Yeah.
Because she has some kind of premonition, powers, like, I thought that, okay, so this is where I thought the movie was going to go. I thought the movie was going to go this way. You probably hear this all the time. Sorry.
It's okay.
A few more minutes and I promise I stopped bothering you.
It's fine.
So my thought, my theory, he'll tell you, I do this all the time. I see a movie, immediately I'm like, this is what's going to happen in the end. This one, I was wrong. I was so wrong because I thought, okay, well, she says that she has some psychic abilities, this and that. They kill the Madam Zena, and she's going to have to take her place. And she has no choice, but she has to be part of the funhouse
The
now.
funhouse.
She has no choice. She's prisoner.
It's nice. I like it.
You
That's
know.
good. It's good. It's
The
good.
sequel.
It's good.
But that's where I thought the movie was going. But then that whole thing ended up just being, I know you're going to die, but you guys are such jerks. I'm not even going to tell you.
Yeah.
Right? But that's where I thought it was going to go. So it very much surprised me. And for me to be able to see a movie and say, I don't know where it's going,
Right.
was actually refreshing.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you. It's rare that I get to say, I don't know, I was wrong.
Yeah. Sometimes she just guesses like the end already. It's like, I'll
You're
just
so
try
frustrating.
I'll try to deny it. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a horror movie. We'll just be watching something. She's like, oh wait, that person's gonna do this already. I'm like, no. And then
And
later
then
on,
it
she's
happens,
right.
and I do this. I do.
Well, I don't want to.
I told you.
I try to let you, believe that maybe that's not going to happen, so that way you're not spoiling the movie for yourself or whatever.
I mean, I enjoy being right. Yeah. So
but-
that's the movie.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. I get excited about it. There were some times where I was like, it's gonna be super creepy in that area. Like I'm not really good with like small things like mice and possums and stuff. And I'm like, it's a carnival. It's the 80s. They're out in the sticks somewhere. There's gonna be a freaking possum. Like his thing on snakes, for me, it's like possum. Like there's gonna be a possum in there. I don't want to see it. But then there was like all the juiciness of his face. Just, oh my God, it was good. Thank you. It was good. So awesome.
Yeah, it was definitely. I enjoyed it too, and we got to watch it twice now, and obviously with your
Well,
explanation.
third, I got to watch it
Yeah.
just now, right here in the room. It's great
Yeah.
storytelling.
Yeah.
I'd buy the pitch, you know.
Take me with you next time. We got this. Yeah, it's the hand movements, I think.
Yeah, no, I was very good friends with Stan Lee, and I did like 3 pictures with him. You know,
Oh, wow.
Tobe went on to do Poltergeist, which was a big over-budgeted film, and then he did 3 very low-budget, under-budgeted films for Canon Films. I hooked up with Stan Lee. I'm talking about the hand gestures because when I used to pitch with Stan Lee, I pitched. Was the first person to ever sell like the Fantastic Four. We sold it to the CBS Theatrical Films. But whenever I would pitch with Stan, I'm sitting here, so I'm pretty self-contained. If you ever see me on the stage, I'm like, my hands are all over. Stan used to always interrupt the pitch and say, "Look at his hands." Because look how he does this. It's like he's doing an orchestra. So it's very good.
You feel me?
All the best speakers do this. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, I if you listen to the podcast, just the audio stuff, you constantly hear clank
Yes,
and
it's
drop.
the microphone. Yeah.
Like, so sorry.
No,
He's always telling me,
yeah.
stop doing that. And I'm like, I'm Latin.
Yes, all the best speakers do that. They speak with their hands.
All the best dictators go. All right. Well, so what projects do you have coming up
Well,
that you're allowed to talk about?
Well, I'm focusing all my attention on trying to get the Funhouse remade.
Awesome.
I've got the rights back from Universal Studios. We're talking with Business Affairs there because we have the American rights, the U.S. rights. They maintain the foreign rights.
Oh, okay.
So we have to make some kind of a deal with them to do this. I don't know if it's going to be a sequel, a prequel, a remake, a series, or I'm even thinking about all at the same time. I'm even thinking about doing it as a Broadway show, where it would be Phantom of the Opera meets The Elephant Man, and the entire theater would be dressed like a carnival, and you would feel like you were at the carnival, and you would see this. Obviously, with a very moving relationship between the father and Gunther, and Gunther falling in love with Amy. Which he does because he imprints on her anyway. So so that's that, and that's kind of like I'm doing lots of podcasts and I want to do Q&As on it, but I've got other like pet projects that I've been working on. I have a sort of like a psycho thriller which I'm trying to set up now. It's kind of hard, but it's the nature of the business.
I've been on this thriller kick lately. So in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a bunch of movies like Ashley Judd and Morgan Freeman. And like I've just been watching them back to back.
That was the spider, Kiss of the Spider.
So there was a Gina Davis one, which was Long Kiss Goodnight. But then there was a Kiss to Girls. It was Long Came a Spider, and all of those. I've just been watching them back to back.
They're great. They're great. They're all of them are based on books usually, like famous novels. But yeah, it's a great. And by the way, they are like horror films. Even though they're thrillers, they use all the tricks of good horror films.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And you mentioned the Funhouse possibly being a series.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. Because you can imagine like a carnival going through different towns and like with different people, different families, or like that would be so insane.
Yeah.
The possibilities are endless.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's
all
exciting.
right. Well, you make sure we come and see it.
Okay.
And we're all good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for stopping by.
My pleasure. This was great. I felt like
really
I was back in the
appreciate
theater again. Watching it again one more time.
Did you see how many times I almost hit him in the face?
Yeah, I did. You guys are great. You made me feel very comfortable. I really appreciate it a lot.
Oh, great.
And I can't wait to see the final product here. And
we'll send it to you.
Okay.
And it's been a long one, but we'll definitely figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got a lot of work to do, bud.
That's all right.
Well, that's all for us today.
Yeah.
Thank you for stopping by.
Appreciate
Thank you for
coming
stopping by.
My pleasure.
And obviously Make sure to subscribe and follow us on Instagram. Do you have any handles or
Yeah,
anything
I
you
do.
want to promote?
My Instagram is, it's very funny actually. It's Larry Block Screenwriter.
Screenwriter.
And the at Larry Block, it sounds terrible, but I have to do it because there's Lawrence Block, who's the mystery writer. There was Larry Block, an actor. And all my stuff winds up going to their sites. And I finally I finally got Lawrence Block to direct people to me,
Oh, nice.
which he's doing. It sounds corny, but it's Larry Block at Larry Block Screenwriter.
Okay, cool. Well,
Yeah,
we'll make
alright.
sure to put that in
We'll
our
put
show
all the
notes and
information
everything.
on our show notes.
Yeah, and obviously, our handles and everything will be in there as well.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah, and then visit us on icecreampodcast.com, and there you will find links to everything: our social media, our guests' information, our episodes, our YouTube, because you can now watch us and all of our hand movements and how much wine I actually drink. And don't forget to check out our Patreon page. All that information also is in the show notes and on our site. And we will see you next time.
Yes.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
All
All
right.
right. Thanks for coming. Thanks so much.
And remember to scare on.
Yeah.